Hi, chat. Chat, it is day 29 of the Kern Red Trill, the Karen Reed trial. Spoiler alert, the prosecution rests today and the defense begins. Oh, you guys had a storm in the Everglades and you're about power for 6. Dang. We heard you on the hot mic. We know you know. Oh, funny. Flashcast should be interesting tonight. Yeah, I think it will be. I will be on with Flash tonight. He asked me to come on, so. By the way, programming note. And then, guys, 6:30, Hella's doing her birthday. So, yeah. Where's the other thing on here? A couple other things real quick. Sleazy gifted 5 memberships. Sleazy, thank you. John Schoen gifted 5 memberships. John, thank you so very much, sir. Thank you guys both for your support. And then Miss Mandy Reacts said, I think the jury will take 2 hours to come back with not guilty. From your lips to God's ears, because I think Karen Reed deserves that. Maybe even an hour, but yeah, I'm hoping it's a quick turnaround. Your favorite lawyer blogger, thank you. Just your power came back on 30 minutes ago. Wow. We'll see. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. Yeah, so we'll get started, guys. Here we go for Karen Reed. We won't get all of it done. We'll probably do the rest tomorrow, but we're at least going to get halfway through it. So here we go. Thank you all for being here, because I am interested in this one. Let's get Kern Red's Trill going. The majestic fan of Massachusetts. All right, chat. 25 minutes down already. That's how awesome we are. Remember, this says 6 hours of 47 minutes. Remember, there's like 2 30-minute breaks and a lunch in there. So it's almost like 2 hours knocked down plus a half hour here. So.
Hear ye, hear ye. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All persons having anything to do before the Honorable Beverly Cannoni, the Justice of the Superior Court, now sitting in Dedham, within and for the Commonwealth. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is in session. Please be seated.
Jim?
22117, the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed.
All right. Good morning, counsel. Good morning, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. I have to ask you those same 3 questions. Were you all able to follow the instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Yes. Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, read anything about this case since we left here yesterday? Everyone said no. Thank you very much. May we have Dr. Scordi-Bello, please?
You solemnly swear the evidence of the court and jury in the case now here to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
Morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Dr. Scordi-Bello, if I could ask you some questions, just turning back a little bit from what you were testifying to about yesterday. You had mentioned in your testimony yesterday that you had received some, in addition to the internal and external examination that you conducted with Mr. O'Keefe, you had received some other material that you had reviewed, correct?
Correct.
Now, included within that material was some material from the state police as far as the investigative agency investigating Mr. O'Keefe's death.
Correct.
Now, is that something, is that typical? Is that abnormal? If you could describe sort of in general terms, as far as what, if any, communication would you typically have with the investigating body or agency in relation to any sort of autopsy or examination you do?
Yes. In Massachusetts, under Massachusetts law, the medical examiner's office is responsible, and our role is to determine the cause and manner of death by doing an autopsy. The scene, or the scene of death, or the place where the decedent is found, is controlled by the district attorney's office, and state police will do an investigation. When we accept a case into our office, we request reports, police reports, to explain and describe the circumstances of the death. It could be a house, it could be somewhere else, it could be outside. Every case comes with a police report, and we review that police report, and if we feel that we need more information, then we contact the investigating body and ask for more information, again, depending on the case.
And specifically in this case, in regard to Mr. O'Keefe, did you reach out to get some more information?
I did reach out, yes.
Was that in part in relation to what you were talking about in your testimony yesterday, as far as the diagnosis of hypothermia and trying to sort of better understand the circumstances?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Why did you reach out?
I reached out because when the case was presented to us, and after I did the autopsy, I did not have all the information that I needed in order to certify the manner. The cause of death to me was, I was able to determine the cause of death from the autopsy. When an event is unwitnessed, we usually reach out to the investigating agency and ask them whether they have any more information than they did on the day that the autopsy was done, because investigations sometimes take some time. So in the days and the weeks following the autopsy, I reached out and asked if there was any more information than what I was originally presented with. Was there any video from the surrounding areas? Did anybody come forward to say that they actually witnessed whatever happened? Again, by the time I was ready to finalize the case, and we have approximately 3 months or 90 days from the day of the autopsy until we issue a report, I was not provided with enough information for me to be able to determine the manner.
Now, Doctor, do you recall specifically who it was that you spoke with from the state police?
Yes, I documented that I spoke with Trooper Proctor, I believe, twice.
And with reference, not asking you anything as far as what that conversation consisted of, but as far as the tone of that conversation, did you feel pressured or coerced to come up with a certain determination?
No, I did not.
And even if you had been, what would your response have been in reference to that?
My response was that I am responsible for what goes on the death certificate, and unless I have enough information, clear and convincing evidence, I cannot determine a manner.
May I approach?
Yes.
Doctor, I'm showing you 5 photographs that I gave you yesterday. Do you recognize those?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize those to be?
I recognize these as photographs of Mr. O'Keefe's body. I believe these were taken at the hospital. One of them is a photograph taken at the time of autopsy.
Okay. May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to seek to introduce the next exhibits.
Ms. Little? No objection. Thank you.
Well, hello, viewing me. Well, he's saying a meetup or a meetup.
Thank you very much. May I have a moment? I just want to make sure they're in the
Yes.
right order. May I approach again?
Yes.
Your Honor, with court's permission, may I publish these to the jury?
So jurors, remember the instruction I gave you yesterday on these photographs. Okay.
Ms. Gilman, if I can have photograph 2853. And Doctor, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, this is a picture taken of Mr. O'Keefe's body.
And Doctor, if you could, using the laser pointer that you have there, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, you observe of significance in this photograph related to the injuries that you were testifying about.
Yes. So first thing you notice is the medical intervention, which I talked about yesterday. There's defibrillator adhesive pads on the chest. There is what's known as a C-collar, a cervical stabilization collar for the neck, and he has been intubated prior to going to the hospital. The injuries that are obvious in this picture include the abrasions on his right forearm and arm. And you can see here, there is discoloration of the upper eyelid of the right eye with some blood that's dripping. That's the orbital or supraorbital ecchymosis that I described before with, we're too far to see the very, very small laceration that is present there, but that's what's causing the bleeding.
And it's going to like that photograph 2857. Now, Doctor, this is not before you at the current time of currently marked as exhibit 442. Do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, this is a picture of the abrasions that I described in my report, posterior upper arm and forearm. You can see that they have some sort of pattern to it. Anytime we see a pattern, we try to document it as best as we possibly can.
Now, Doctor, with reference to these injuries as far as the abrasions to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, what kind of role would that play as far as your determination as far as cause of death of Mr. O'Keefe?
These are superficial abrasions to the skin. They are not lethal. They're not contributory to the cause of death. The trauma that I observed on the head along with the hypothermia are the two factors contributing to his death. These are present, they're noted, they're described, they're photographed, but I do not know how they came to be, and I did not contribute them to the cause of death.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 286. Doctor, returning to the exhibits of the photos that you have before you, do you recognize what's up on the screen here?
Yes, this is a photograph of Mr. O'Keefe's right hand. This is the dorsum or the dorsal aspect of the hand as opposed to the palm. And you can see that there are some contusions or bruises. There's a larger one here and two very small ones here. This particular contusion has two pinpoint small defects associated with it. I believe this could be due to attempts at gaining IV access during the many attempts of resuscitation, but I cannot be absolutely sure.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 865. And Dr. Scordi-Bello, if you could, again, using the way to point direct jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance she notes in this photograph.
Again, this is a slightly closer view of Mr. O'Keefe's face. You can see the discoloration, the ecchymosis on the right eye with a slight amount of bleeding. You can see here that there's also some discoloration of his left eye.
Look at him. Look at him. He's like such a cocky fucker.
Left eyelid.
And Doctor, with reference to the other injuries that you were testifying about yesterday, as far as the small cuts or abrasions or lacerations, are those visible in this photograph as well?
I can't hear your question. If you could just repeat it and a little louder.
Sure. My apologies, Doctor. With reference to this photograph, as far as your testimony yesterday in regard to the other smaller injuries around the nose and eyes area of Mr. O'Keefe, are those visible in this photograph as well?
You can see some discoloration of the nose, but this is not a very good picture of it. I think there's a linear abrasion on the left side of the nose that I described, and it's probably this.
Ms. Gilman, did I photograph 2877? And doctor, if you could, again, using the laser pointer, direct your attention to what anything is significant you observed in this photo.
Yes, this is a view of the left side of Mr. O'Keefe's face. You can see the discoloration of the left eyelid, and now you can see this linear abrasion on his nose and a small abrasion more towards the middle of his nose.
Ms. Gilman, lastly, for this set, if I could have photograph 9488. Same, Dr. Scordi-Bello, if you could, using the laser pointer, direct your attention to what, if anything, is significant you observed.
This is the laceration to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head. You can see this defect here. It's ragged. It's a typical classic blunt impact injury, and you can see the abrasion, the scrape that is adjacent to it.
Thank you, doctor. Ms. Gilman, you can take that. And the doctor, we get out the lights. Thanks. Now, doctor, with reference to what you were testifying yesterday as far as the subscapular bleeding, the bleeding under the scalp, was that more or less prominent on one side versus the other side of Mr. O'Keefe's scalp?
Yes, it was more prominent under that laceration that we just looked at.
And so would that be more prominent on the right side? Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, you testified yesterday about a blunt object injury in relation to the injury to the back of the head, then leading to the fractures and the bleeding in the brain, correct?
Correct.
And then further leading to the ecchymosis, is that correct?
In the eyes, yes.
Now, that blunt objects, what, if anything, can you say about what that blunt object could be?
Could be any blunt object.
Now, from your training experience with reference to the number of autopsies and examinations that you've conducted over the years, would that blunt object's possibility include the ground, especially if it was frozen ground?
Objection. Ask the question differently.
The injuries that you observed to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head, skull fracture, would that be consistent with a fall to the ground?
It could be.
Would that be consistent with being projected by an object, say in a pedestrian collision, and then striking your head on the ground?
It's possible.
Uh-oh.
The arm injuries that you observed, would those be consistent with scratches from either glass or a piece of plastic or a piece of metal?
It's possible.
And the injuries that you observed, would that be consistent with injuries that you observed in other cases of a pedestrian collision?
They're not the classic pedestrian injuries that we observe, no.
Oh!
As far as when you say classic, as far as a pedestrian collision is concerned, you.
Oh no, chat, no. Oh no. Uh-oh. That's not good. That's not good, Lally. Uh-oh. Yes. No. Yes, what does that mean? She said they're not the classic typical injuries you see in a pedestrian collision. And then he goes on to ask her, what does that mean? Garrett says, how do you call this witness? You have to. This is your medical examiner. You have to call her. If you don't call her, you're fucked. So you have to call her. So you have to call her if you're the prosecutor.
And the injuries that you observed.
Look at that reaction on her face. Like she knows, like she's like, I'm going to say something they're not going to like. She knows she's going to have to say something they don't want to hear.
Would that be consistent with injuries that you observed in other cases of a pedestrian collision?
They're not the classic pedestrian injuries that we observe, no.
And to that point, as far as when you say classic, as far as a pedestrian collision is concerned, you've conducted autopsies on a number of different pedestrian collisions over the course of your career. Is that correct?
Yes, I have.
Do they all sort of mirror each other? Is there sort of a disparity depending on how the person interacted with the car?
Objection. Sustained. Watch the form, Mr. Lally.
What, if anything, are every injuries from a pedestrian collision the same?
No.
And why not?
It depends on many factors. It depends on the position of the body, of the pedestrian or the person being struck. It depends on whether they are moving or standing still. It depends on the speed of the car. It depends on whether brakes were applied or not. There's a lot of factors that come into play.
Would another factor be sort of the shape of the vehicle that strikes a pedestrian?
That's also possible. Yes, that's a factor.
And did you have occasion to see any photographs, or have you seen any photographs in relation to the defendant's vehicle in this case?
I have seen photographs, yes.
And the size or shape of that vehicle, what, if any, significance did that have to you as far as your examination?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
When we have a potential vehicle, clearly we look at the height, because one of the things that we do in most or all pedestrian or people struck by a motor vehicle is look at the legs, because in the majority, we see injuries to the legs from the bumper of the car. Again, depending on the kind of car, the size of the car, and the height of the bumper. So in Mr. O'Keefe, I did not see any injuries in the lower extremities. And looking at the car, I did note that it was a much bigger car with much higher, I would say much higher tail light bumper. It was not a sedan or a car that's low to the ground where the bumper would be at the level of, let's say, the knee or slightly above or slightly below.
And again, I believe yesterday in your testimony, you indicated that the skull is a pretty thick bone. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sustained.
With regards to the thickness of the skull bone, what, if any, significance, or what, if any, what, if anything, you say as far as the type or amount of force that would be necessary to cause the fracture that you observed?
Objection.
Overruled.
I would consider the amount of force to be significant, again, without being able to quantify it.
It's almost like you would need a biomechanical engineer or a physicist to quantify it, and they could comment on a medical issue. Oh, wait, Judge Bev won't let him do that. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Here's a problem here, chat.
Can I have a moment, John?
Yes.
Now, doctor, from the internal and external examination that you conducted in regard to Mr. O'Keefe, as well as the other materials that you reviewed, were you able to come to an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to the cause of death of John O'Keefe?
Yes, the cause of death was due to blunt impact injuries of the head and hypothermia.
Thank you, doctor. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right, cross-examination.
That was rough. That was rough, Lally.
Good morning, Dr. Scordi-Bello.
Good morning.
Ms. Little, keep your voice up.
Absolutely. You testified regarding a number of injuries that you referred to as blunt impact injuries, correct?
Yes,
And to be clear, blunt impact injuries are a very, very large category that includes contusions, lacerations, abrasions, and fractures.
correct.
And you testified similarly that a blunt object can also refer to a large range of objects. Is that right?
Correct.
And I think yesterday you gave the example of a microphone being a blunt object.
Correct.
It could also include something like a baseball bat,
Correct.
a dumbbell,
Could be.
the
This is
ground,
her first
Yes.
time test. This is her first
or a
time up
German
there.
Shepherd's claws.
Claws. Possibly, yes.
Ooh.
You'd agree that John O'Keefe had a number of blunt impact injuries on his face, on his head, and his right arm.
Yes.
Besides his right arm, which we'll discuss in a second, taking his body from the neck down,
We'll
He
get
did
to
not
this.
have any significant injuries.
From the neck down, not significant, no.
Let's take those one at a time. No injury whatsoever to his shoulders.
Correct.
No injuries whatsoever to his chest area, aside from sort of the CPR-related injuries that you discussed.
Yes, correct.
And that was in the sternum, is that right?
It was in the ribs, just adjacent to the sternum, yes.
Okay. No injuries to his torso, other than that?
No.
No injuries to his back?
No.
No injuries to his hips?
Correct.
No injuries to his pelvis?
Correct.
No injuries to his thighs?
To his,
Thighs?
no.
No injuries to his knees?
Correct.
No injuries to his shins?
Correct.
No injuries to his ankles?
Correct.
No injuries to his feet?
Correct.
From the neck down, he did not have a single broken bone, again, aside from those CPR-related injuries you discussed, correct?
That's correct.
Not a single fracture.
Other than CPR, correct.
And you spoke earlier about how the bumper was a little higher than on, say, a regular sedan, correct?
Correct.
Which once again makes no sense in a vehicular collision. That all the force was sustained to his head makes absolutely no goddamn sense.
So usually in a pedestrian collision, you would see injuries to the knees, is that right?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Depending on the kind of car, depending on the speed, depending on the height of the individual and the car, you might see injuries to their lower extremity. Yeah.
But in this case, you didn't see any injuries to his thighs, to his pelvis, anything even at the height of the bumper, is that correct?
Corrected a very minor abrasion to the side of his right knee.
So surely you'd agree that John O'Keefe's injuries, or lack thereof, are inconsistent with having been struck by a 7,000-pound vehicle at 24 miles per hour and being projected 30 feet.
Objection.
Sustained. Break it down, ask it differently.
Would you agree that John O'Keefe's injuries, or lack thereof, are inconsistent with having been struck by a vehicle at 24 miles per hour?
I would say it's likely and unlikely at the same time, depending on the position of the body and the vehicle in question.
Well, let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say the person were standing with their arm like this, and they were struck by the rear taillight of a vehicle at 24 miles per hour. Would you agree that his injuries are inconsistent with that scenario?
Objection.
See, she should say for the record, and this is where you do this. She should be saying for the record, I'm standing right here. My right arm is up in a throwing motion or in a straight up motion, or I'm throwing a Roman, whatever it is. You need to demonstrate that for the record, because right now we have no fucking idea and the record has no idea. So, yeah, but here we go. She's fucking getting her. The skull fracture shows a great and awful amount of force. It does. It shows a massive amount of force. But all that force being focused on the head is, there's a lot of reasons why that could happen, like getting your fucking head kicked in. But getting hit by a vehicle and your head's the only thing that gets hit, I find that very hard to believe. I mean, I would argue getting hit with a bumper of a car at 24 miles an hour can almost tear your head off. So, I mean, I think if you put Rentschler in a situation where it could be frank, he's like, I'd expect a near decapitation.
Sustained.
Maybe approach your honor.
Sure.
Uh-oh, Lolly. Well, you guys were asking about her. Yes, this is her first time up, and she probably
You are
does the medical
unmuted.
stuff well. Yes, I agree.
Would you agree that John O'Keefe's injuries to his arm, let's start there,
I'm sorry, Lisa.
are inconsistent with having been struck by a vehicle at 24 miles per hour and then causing him to spin around and be projected 30 feet?
Usually that's not very, usually people say it's the other way around, so I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to yell. But yes, this is likely she's got a good medical knowledge, and she's also been the junior attorney on this whole time. And I will tell you this much. It says a lot that they're asking her to bring it home in the prosecution's case in chief. It says a lot about her, that they truly value her if she's going up against the ME.
Okay, so you need to break it down.
Would you agree that John O'Keefe's injury to his arm are inconsistent with having been struck by a vehicle at 24 miles per hour?
I don't know. I am not a reconstruction expert. I'm not a biomechanics expert.
Oh, good. Guess who we've got on call coming up next? A biomechanical expert and an accident reconstructionist. You know, by golly, imagine the odds we have those guys ready to go. They'll be able to tell us. Oh, God. And you know, that's the funny thing. She's like, I don't know. And now Lally can't say, what do these guys know? Kieran is saying womp womp. Yeah. Has she opened a door? I would argue so. Because she would say that's outside. I can't opine on that. It's like, well, I've got an expert who can. So, yeah, I would argue she's opened a door. You know, you dragged a bookcase in front of Attorney Little and said, you need to be an expert on biomechanics in 6 months. Yes. All right, guys, here we go.
I never personally inspected the car, so I can't offer an opinion on that.
Ooh.
You did examine John O'Keefe's arm, correct?
Yes,
You observed no significant bruising,
correct,
no fractures,
correct,
and no broken bones.
correct.
I'd like to talk about the injuries to John O'Keefe's face. You testified that Mr. O'Keefe had a laceration on his right upper eyelid.
Correct.
You also described multiple abrasions on his nose.
2, yes,
Although these injuries may not have been the ultimate cause of his death, you'd agree that less severe injuries can still be very important in interpreting the manner or the context in which that person died, correct?
correct,
And in furtherance of that, you've been taught that when doing an autopsy, details matter,
correct,
no matter how small.
correct,
And that's one of the reasons as a medical examiner, you have to notate every single injury you find on a person. Is that
correct.
right? If I could show you. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Show Mr. Lally.
Oh, she did? I forgot about her. That tells you how forgettable this fucking trial's been so far. You completely forget who's done what. Now, viewing game, you bring up a theory here. Is it possible he was bending down, picking up something off the ground? I mean, I guess I would just say, think about it this way. So, you know, here's the car. You know, we do a lot of telestration here, chat. And it's going to go backwards. And John O'Keefe's standing right here. And he's bent over. And he's like, ooh, where did my cell phone go? He's like, do, 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 do. And it hits him right here. Boom. And he goes, how would he fly? Because he wouldn't go. I mean, think about all the injury. That injury would be straight in his head. It would be caved in. It would probably injure his back. He probably would have multiple cervical and other spinal fractures. You know, maybe not like his lumbar spine, but definitely past his C-spine. But he didn't have spinal fractures. He didn't have cervical fractures. And even if he got hit, he would have like kind of, instead of flying through the air, he probably would have, his head would have gone like, whoop, bam. He would have gone around his center of gravity right here. He would have kind of spun around it and thwack on the ground. So I'm not trying to make fun of you. I just don't think it's right based on what we know. That would be the argument I would present. Yeah, no. I'm just saying, viewing game. The argument is, oh my god, I drew him. It looks like he's got a huge ass now. Viewing me, I'm not trying to make fun of you, but I was just kind of articulating where I think we are. Yeah, his face would have been just. Am I able to increase the chord volume or decrease my volume for better balance? I've never had this problem before, but yeah, we'll try to. I'll crank up the chord volume here on that. So let me. Yeah, I'll crank up the chord volume. I'm so sorry. My Ladybug, I am so sorry. My apologies. I've never had this issue. Usually people complain that for some reason StreamYard washes out my voice over the courts. So yeah. Yeah, there's no neck injuries. Yeah, there's nothing. Well, if it hit and his head was down, I could see it that way. My argument is, and I said this earlier, let's say John O'Keefe was sitting or he was in a position where his head was at level with the car's bumper. My argument was if it's like this and he's at bumper height, like if here's the bumper, my argument was if he got hit by a bumper going 24 miles an hour and like let's say his feet are here and he's laying on the ground, that would have taken his head off. Oh, I like because this idea of like let's say John was already laying on the ground and he sat up and the bumper hit him, that probably would have torn his head clean off. If he's hunched over, I could see it just crushing his skull and, you know, destroying his upper body. But in this situation here, because like I would argue that's akin to falling off a roof head first. In this situation, if John's sitting down and he sits up and the like a bumper going that fast, and it's not the speed, but it's the combined force, would probably have almost at least internally decapitated him. That's what I was trying to get at. So I'm ready about it. Holy fuck balls, this nuts. Yeah, no. I've never had this issue before. Yeah, his head was pulverized. So yeah, he would just fall flat back. Well, I could see yeah, those are not pet injuries. Those are not pet vehicle injuries, are not consistent. I know, Sniper. I'm just talking. I don't think it makes sense. But did he have a heat allergy? Yeah, that's what happened. John's heat allergy got the best of him. It incapacitated him, chat. So let's keep going.
Do you recognize that photograph?
I do.
And is that a photograph that was taken in connection with your autopsy?
Yes, it was taken at the time of autopsy after the face was cleaned.
I move to admit.
I'm sorry, after what?
The face was cleaned up.
Okay.
I move to admit, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Exhibit 650.
Real quick, viewing me. The injuries on the arm were not fatal and were not severe. So the dog bites, the punctures, the scratches, none of that would have been fatal alone. He could have survived without medical attention on those. So there wasn't an issue. So.
Permission to publish?
Yes.
Are these the facial injuries that you were testifying to earlier?
Yes.
And could you kind of describe in that photograph what injuries you observed in his face?
The orbital ecchymosis on both eyes, the small laceration to the right eyelid, the abrasions on the nose.
And you testified that the injuries to his face were also the result of a blunt force trauma.
Correct.
So that's the laceration to the eye and the two abrasions that you see there on his nose.
Correct.
And you agree that those injuries don't just manifest out of nowhere, right?
Absolutely.
They have to originate from something.
Yes.
Would you agree that his injuries to his face are consistent with having been punched?
That is a possibility.
You can take that down, Mr. Bates. Thank you. Your internal examination notes also cite a tongue laceration on the right front of the victim's tongue. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you'd agree that a tongue laceration can be also caused by blunt force trauma.
Correct.
And that could also include something like a punch to the victim's face or jaw.
That's a possibility.
In addition to the facial injuries, you described that Mr. O'Keefe had a significant laceration on the back of his head.
He had one laceration to the back of his head, correct?
I believe we saw a photograph of that a
Yes.
little bit earlier. You testified that the skin around the laceration on the back of his head was also scratched. Do you recall
Yes.
that?
I do.
But you did not testify as to how you opined that might have happened.
No.
Would you agree that someone could certainly get scratched on the back of their head if they were, for instance, dragged on the ground?
It's possible.
You described the open wound to the back of his head as a laceration, which is sort of a blunt force injury that's not the result of sharp force trauma. Is that right?
Yes.
And you'd agree that Mr. O'Keefe's head injury came from some sort of blow to the back of the head, whether it be an object or the ground. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Objection.
Hold on, man.
And that injury could be the result of falling backward from a standing position onto concrete.
It's possible.
It could also be the result of being struck with a large object such as a baseball bat or a barbell.
It's possible.
In other words, it was an irregular laceration that resulted from some blunt force trauma.
Correct.
I'd like to sort of circle back to those injuries to Mr. O'Keefe's arm. You testified that there were, again, no fractures, no broken bones, no significant contusions.
Correct.
But you did describe the wounds to Mr. O'Keefe's arm as having discrete linear abrasions, which were caused by some sort of blunt object, correct?
Yes.
What does discrete mean?
It means each one is an individual injury as opposed to confluent, where it would be all meshed together.
Your Honor, if I could publish what's been previously marked as Exhibit 19.
Okay.
And these are sort of the linear wounds that you're referring to.
Yes.
And you testified that these also sort of appear in clusters or groups. You call
Yes.
them pattern abrasions. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
And you'd agree that, for example, road rash does not result in this type of discrete linear wounds.
It could, but not exactly like this.
Well, typically road rash covers sort of a large area of the skin. It would be a large abrasion. I mean, you've seen numerous cases of road rash in your
Yes.
career. And it doesn't look like that.
Correct.
That's correct. It doesn't look that way.
Blunt force trauma can include injuries from various objects, as
Oh,
you
I saw that,
testified,
Mr.
including an
Sniper.
animal
I'll bring that
paw,
up.
correct?
Correct.
And you'd agree that these discrete linear abrasions are inconsistent with having been struck by a smooth rear taillight at 24 miles per hour.
Objection.
Can you answer that, Doctor?
I can't. By
Okay.
smooth, no.
All right, next question.
By a smooth rear taillight, you said that is
Boosh, this is Friday. We're watching Friday right now. So we have not watched it at all. We're catching up. We got stuck in the Alec Baldwin trap.
not what you would see at 24 miles per hour, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Nope, Lynn, not broken.
As you testified earlier, you've indicated that based on the facts that were presented to you, you don't know what caused those significant scratches on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
I do not.
May I approach, Your Honor? Sure.
If I could just see what was.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lilly. Do you recognize that photograph?
I do. It's a photograph of Mr. O'Keefe's right hand.
May I mark that as the next order?
Is there an objection?
May we approach?
Okay.
Dr.
Okay, yeah, Mystery Sniper indicated he had been in an injury accident himself and, you know, all the things like that. Yeah, look at him. Look at him now. Look at him now. Look at your smug fuck face. Look at that face. Yeah, that's so smug. Sitting there going, all those times before, buddy. Yeah, that shit-eating grin's gone. Maybe brother killed by friends. Oh no, I got all wrong. Then real quick, you guys were talking about Jackson's facial expressions. Jackson looks concerned. He's concerned because right now he's not in control. One of the other attorneys is. Also, Jackson can't sit there and go like this the whole time, like, yeah, this is tense. When I'm in trial, I'm never like that. I'm like, always looking around. He's looking around, listening to his co-counsel. He's watching the jury. He's watching the judge. He's watching what's being presented. Yeah, he's bouncing around, being careful, like he's being a professional. So the idea, like he's he's doing that. It's like, well, yeah, of course he would be. Of course he would be. I wouldn't expect him to do anything less. Lynn is saying hypothermia most likely killed him. The hypothermia finished him off. He was left the injuries he sustained left him unconscious, and then he was left out in the snow when hypothermia killed him. So hypothermia was the direct cause. A contributing cause was incapacitation from all the head injuries. So that's where that happened. Is this jury mostly women? Yes. Yes. Juror 13 saying the doc wanted nothing to do with speculation. I agree, which is impressive that she stayed that steadfast. Lois saying, why would you put her on last? Of all the stuff you've got, she's probably the strongest. You end on what you can say, like with the medical facts and stuff. You end on that. That's actually not abnormal to do that. Because the other thing you normally end on is your lead detective, and Trooper Proctor is a fucking piece of shit. So you can't end on him. You got to end on somebody. All your detectives suck. All your other witnesses suck. So this is the least. She's the only one who didn't screw up or do sketchy shit. You're left with what you got. Yes, and she probably is the go-to for the medical stuff. Zach says, y'all just ignorant. After Alexis chewed on his arm, she spit on him 30 feet away. Yes. Very true. Then Stopmoss B says those arms must be from a heat allergy. Very true. Very true. The Brimstone says, I went to the gym for the first time in like 5 years. That sucked. Wait, good on you, man. Good on you.
You are unmuted.
Good on you. Keep it up. He herniated. He was brain dead. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, by the time he got to the hospital, he was dead. But yeah, the hypothermia finished him off. So she's talking to the exhibit guy to get ready. They're trying to get some stuff pulled up.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to publish?
Well, we need to mark it first. So we'll mark it for identification, and then when it's appropriate, it will be transferred to being an exhibit.
Thank you.
But yes, you can publish. Is it all set to be published appropriately?
Yes, Your Honor.
The triple N for identification.
Okay.
Dr. Scordi-Bello, you indicated on direct examination that at least that one of the bruises from Mr. O'Keefe's right hand could potentially be attributed to an attempt to get IV fluid into the hand. Is that correct?
Correct.
During the course of conducting your autopsy, you reviewed records from the Canton Fire Department and EMS, as well as Good Samaritan Hospital. Is that correct?
I did.
And do you recall reviewing records indicating that the IV fluids in this particular case were administered through the tibia and then later through a catheter at the hospital?
Yes, they were administered through intraosseous lines in both legs, shins, and at the hospital, they were administered through a femoral central line. Yes.
And you'd agree that bruising to the backs of hands is also consistent with defensive wounds.
Yes, that's correct.
And there are actually 4 separate distinct bruises outside of the one that you discussed earlier on Mr. O'Keefe's right hand, correct?
Yes, I would say 3, but I can see how you would say 4. 1, 2, 3. That might be 1 together. But yes, I can see how you would say 4.
And you testified yesterday that there was also an injury to Mr. O'Keefe's left hand.
There was a vague contusion on his left hand, correct?
You were asked by Mr. Lowry.
Can we take this down now, Ms. Little?
Yes, Your Honor. You testified on direct examination that you didn't see any sort of obvious signs of a fight because Mr. O'Keefe's fingernails were intact and you didn't observe any fractures on his hands. Is that right?
Correct.
But broken fingernails and fractured hands aren't the only observable signs of a fight. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
In fact, you noted a laceration over his eye.
Yes.
You noticed multiple lacerations on his nose.
Abrasions on his nose, yes.
Yes. Multiple abrasions on his nose.
Correct.
You noticed a laceration to his tongue.
Yes.
You noted the contusions on the back of his right hand.
Correct.
The injury, the contusion to his left hand as well.
Correct.
And as you just testified, bruising on the back of hands may be consistent with defensive wounds.
It could be.
So in fact, if you have a body that presents with a laceration to one of the brows, a laceration or abrasions to the nose, an egg over an eye, contusions and abrasions on the hands, and a laceration to the tongue, these injuries are consistent with a physical altercation, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Are those injuries consistent with a physical altercation?
Objection.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Sure.
Hold on, guys. That beeping is the state's case on life support. Shut up, Bev. Why sustained? I don't know. I don't know what was sustained.
You are unmuted.
Shifting gears for a second.
Jurin, I think you might agree with me. That vomit may have been unconscious. He may have been unconscious when he vomited. Who knows?
Indicated on direct examination that you reviewed some photographs from law enforcement that showed no footprints in the snow. Do you recall that testimony?
I do.
Were those provided to you by Trooper Proctor?
Yes.
Do you have those photographs with you?
No, I don't.
Do you recall what was depicted in those photographs?
Yes. If I remember correctly, it was the area of the fire hydrant and the area where Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered. It's the front of the house, the area of the fire hydrant, and I believe the flagpole.
Thank you. You testified that Mr. O'Keefe had multiple fractures to his skull, but that they seemed to be originating from a single point of impact on the back of his head. Is that correct?
It appeared so, yes.
Are you reasonably certain that all of his injuries were the result of a single impact to the back of the head?
It could be a single impact.
But it also could be multiple impacts, correct?
It could be, yes.
Because as you just testified, Mr. O'Keefe suffered multiple injuries to the front of his face as well.
Correct.
In other words, he could have suffered trauma to the face and then fallen and sustained the injury to the back of the head, correct?
That is possible, yes.
And you testified before the state grand jury that the areas of bruising to the brain were likely due to a fall. Is that correct?
Yes.
In your expert medical opinion, is it possible for someone to get punched in the face hard enough to lose consciousness and fall backward?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
It's possible.
If I can have one.
Sure.
May I see the exhibits that were just marked, Your Honor? Your Honor, if I could have permission to publish what's been previously admitted as Exhibit 19.
Yes.
Dr. Scordi-Bello, it's kind of hard to see in this picture, but there's some redness that you observe on the body by the ribs that we observed in some of the other photographs that were presented by Mr. Lally.
Audrey, that's interesting. We'll catch that in a second.
We have testimony on it.
Oh, no, it makes sense with the repeated blows
Your Honor.
or one massive blow. But yes, it's more consistent with multiple blows to get to that result. I agree. 322 people watching, guys. Thank you for being here.
I'd like to show you what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 648. Ms. Gilman, would it be, Mr. Bates, could you take that down? Ms. Gilman, would it be possible to display Exhibit 648? 648. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
2853. Thank you.
I think it's more the fact he shit himself when he died or was
Dr.
injured.
Scordi-Bello, you were shown this photograph by Mr. Lally on direct examination.
Yes.
Do you see the redness sort of next to his rib cage on the bottom? Correct.
Yes.
What is that?
That is livor.
Lividity?
Lividity. Yes.
Can you describe to the jury what lividity is?
Yes. Lividity is the pooling of blood to the dependent areas of the body after someone is deceased.
So even though it sort of appears to look like a bruise, that's lividity, correct?
That is lividity. Yes. It goes all the way down.
And it's not the result of an injury.
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, the lights, please. Thank you. Mr. Lally?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, since we're at the break here, we're going to catch up here. Yeah, as someone who has TBI, his brain damage is not from one hit or two from a vehicle crash. His brain was smashed multiple times. Oh, I agree. I mean, that's the thing that makes more sense. What's more likely? The front damage, the back damage, the damage to the base of the cranial vault. Like she showed it. All those fractures throughout his skull. What's more common? One massive injury or getting Donnybrooked by a couple of micks? Probably that. Yeah, shitting himself would indicate a brain injury, but a lot of people code Brown at the end. Well, that's what I mean. As he's dying out in the snow, he probably shit himself. That happens. I mean, he wasn't officially dead, but it sounds like at that point he was brain dead by the time they found him. No mandate saying, as an MD, it's pretty appalling. Lally could bring this case knowing what she's testifying to. He should get a bar complaint, and Trooper Paul should be put on paid leave. All these guys should be forced to deal with it. But yes, it is disgusting. Lally knows all this, and he's still bringing the case. Liza saying, thank you for being here. Well, of course. And let me get to these comments here. Yeah, he herniated. He was brain dead. Yeah, I think he was brain dead by the time they found him. Audrey, for $10. Thank you, Audrey, saying, when you herniate, you have diffuse neurovascular dysregulation. He had rapid onset hypothermia anyway. Add on the vascular dilation. He could have been outside for less than an hour. Really? You get I don't doubt what you're saying, but that's impressive. I was assuming in a situation like this, it would need to be like 3, 4, 5 hours of, getting frozen out in the yard. He could have been out there 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. Something happens and they throw him out there. Interesting. Juror 13 is going to say if he was on a hard surface when he was seizing, the bruise on the back could be on the back of the hand could be from the seizure activity. Yeah, but I think those were probably consistent with the medical trying to, because Alpha Fox is mentioning if we remember, they tried to give him IVs. They tried to do warming of his bones. You know, the hand injury, it's not consistent with combat. So it was probably hospital taking care. Otto says, do y'all remember Higgins' testimony and how at 2 a.m. he went in his office to move cars? Yeah. Conscious alive, no doubt he had a seizure. Oh, I guarantee you, by the time he got to the hospital, everything went wrong that could go wrong. His body was firing off the last little bit it had. So, goddamn, how bad did they beat him up? It sounds like they beat the fuck out of him. So, oh, ETOH is alcohol. Okay. Oh, ethanol. Oh, I just the way it was spelled, like no capitalization, I wasn't sure. Great. Well, hold on. Where are we saying here? It's speculation. Well, that's all we've got, man, because the state has not provided anything. The state has not provided any goddamn proof of anything. Great success. So it's all speculation. I mean, that's the thing. Oh, Mavka's saying I listened to that podcast. The one person was spamming. Oh, the Prosecutors podcast. Yeah, Trooper Paul has practical experience, unlike those nerds. Yeah. Well, those nerds have great experience. Lally should be fired. I think he should. This is the disgusting case they put together. Ladybug Lisa for 199. Thank you. Who beat him up? Colin Albert, the Alberts. I mean, he could have been laying on the ground when they started booting him in the face. You know, we don't know because nobody got checked for injuries. Bush is saying, nope, his body would have been frozen. In 18 degrees, he would have expired in minutes after dying. After dying, it takes 2 hours to freeze. He wasn't in the yard for 6 hours. Okay, so that makes sense with what you guys are saying. Something happened like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. They threw him outside and he died. And you know what? It sounds like it was snowing hard enough that it covered up the tracks and also didn't let him fully freeze. Let's see here. Bernie, how you doing? Eat what the monkeys eat. How are you doing? When are you doing a chill stream next? Probably tonight. We're gonna do a little model building. And then Flash asked if I come on. So we're gonna be hanging out with Hella for a little while, and then we're probably gonna do some model building tonight. Natasha for $20. Thank you, Natasha. And we got some as an EMT, I've never heard of starting a line for a full arrest. It's always the AC, which is proximal to the heart, so the meds, epi, and amiodarone get to the heart stat. If no access, then IO, depending on protocol. You know, I don't doubt you for that, but this whole case has so many issues to it that I'll take your word on that. But yeah, it's like everybody did something. It's a comedy of idiots. Everyone in this case is an idiot except Karen Reed. Except she's an idiot for picking John O'Keefe. But thank you, Natasha, for the super chat. I appreciate it. He could have lived for hours without brain injury. Yeah, he could have lived for hours, but I'd argue that brain injury would be borderline terminal. And if it wasn't terminal, he would be severely retarded with a brain injury like that. Because I'm betting the brain suffered a lot of long-lasting damage. I mean, the amount of pressure in his skull after a while they would have had to do multiple reliefs. And I don't know if they would have been able to do enough relief to his skull to get the pressure out. given all the damage around it, he might have, just, yeah. We're going to do the model building here tonight. Natasha saying, I mean, no hand IV, but AC, the inner elbow IV for CPR. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yes, true denominator. They all went to Canton High School. Yeah, they're all public school education. Juror says, I've seen plenty of medics go for the hand during full arrest. They panic and just do what they always do. And that makes sense too. You go to the standard. People mess up like that. Okay. So, but yeah, let's keep going here. But Natasha, thank you for the super chat. And then making sure I caught everybody up here. All right, guys, let's keep chucking. Here comes Lally with Scordi-Bello.
Dr. Scordi-Bello, you did observe a minor abrasion to Mr. O'Keefe's right knee, is that correct?
Correct.
And what part of the knee was that on, if you recall?
It was on the side, on the lateral side of his right knee.
And by lateral, sort of the side that faces away from the body, is that correct?
Correct.
We're asked whether or not the small injuries on Mr. O'Keefe's face could possibly be from a punch, is that correct?
Correct.
You said that's one of the possibilities, is that correct?
Yes.
What are some of the other possibilities?
Could be impact during a fall. It could be coming in contact with any blunt object in the snow.
Would glass be a possibility as far as a blunt object?
It could be under certain circumstances.
Piece of plastic under certain circumstances as far as a blunt object, would that be also a possibility?
Correct. Yes.
Now, as far as the abrasion near the laceration on the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head, you were asking questions about whether or not that could be from dragging, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as injuries or abrasions concerning dragging, would it be typical to see just one isolated abrasion in the area of a laceration?
Not typical, but possible.
Could that also be a result of the blunt impacts or, as one of the possibilities you testified before, from hitting the ground?
Yes.
Now, you were asked about hitting the ground, specifically hitting concrete. Would that impact injuries to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head also be consistent with striking his head on frozen ground?
I'm sorry.
No, I'll allow it.
Can you repeat the question?
You were asked a question on cross-examination about the laceration and abrasion to the back of Mr. O'Keefe's head being consistent with striking his head on concrete, correct?
Yes.
Would that also be consistent with striking his head on frozen ground?
Could be. Yes.
You were asked about certain wounds as being a possibility of defensive wounds. What are some of the other types of defensive wounds that you would expect to see that you did not see in this case?
I would expect to see, or I have seen, multiple bruising to the, again, posterior aspects of the forearms. I have seen cuts, lacerations, depending on how a person might be defending themselves, the position of their arms.
And would that also include breaks in the fingernails and fractures to the hands?
Objection.
Watch the form, Mr. Lally, sustained.
What, if anything else, would that include?
It might include bruising to the knuckles. It might include broken fingers.
Now, with reference to the injuries that you were asked about with respect to Mr. O'Keefe's right hand, would those also be consistent?
You know why you wouldn't see defensive marks? If you hit someone in the back of the head and knocked them out. Just saying.
With impact from a blunt object as well?
They are blunt impact injuries. Yes.
Now, again, if I could, just with reference to, you were asked about different possibilities with the skull fractures and bleeding in the brain. What is your opinion as to sort of how that was caused and sort of, if you could, again, just go through your opinion as to the head injuries, the skull fracture, and bleeding?
Objection.
Ask it again, Mr. Lally, in a different way.
You were asked about some possibilities. What is your opinion as to how those injuries were sustained or manifested in this report?
I don't know how they came to be. I
Can't
described them
comment on
and
that.
I
She has no idea.
stated previously that they are consistent with a fall to the back of the head.
And so I'm sorry, Doctor. My question is more geared towards as far as the single impact to the back of the skull and then sort of radiating fractures in the skull. If you could explain that in reference to the subdural hemorrhage, subarachnoid hemorrhage, and the ecchymoses that you observed.
Again, a single impact with a fall could cause all the injuries that we're seeing in the brain and the skull.
Thank you. I know.
No further questions.
All right, doctor, you are all set. Thank you very much.
All right, chat right there. Just so you know, that's theatrical. You remember before, where did Lally have? Lally had that stack of shit right in front of him. That right there is 100% theatrical. Exhibit book 5, those big binders. And look, half those binders, there aren't even paper stuck in the pages, like stuffed in there. It's like a binder clip in the middle of that. This is psychological warfare. Showing the jury everything they have. This is meant, you know, there's a guys, remember, everything exists for a reason. You do everything for a reason. That's staging. That's showing the jury, look at everything we have. We're the good guys. Look at, and you know what, juries never think about the quality of evidence, but they are looking at the quality of the evidence. He hasn't looked at any of that. Maybe he should have. I see that as a disorganized mess. But a lot of people are going to see that as, oh my God, that's a lot of stuff. That's important. I mean, here's the thing. If, you know, you do stuff to make it like, heck, when I go to trial, like I carry it's called, I have an Ohio evidence manual with me. It's one of the things I bring and I slap it on the desk and I have a bunch of parts where it's tabbed and I've looked through it before. I never use it. It's part of my equipment, though. It's part of the, you have theater. You have props. This right here is a prop, chat. This is a prop. We're done, Your Honor. Look, you know, because he's going to say, I had that whole stack of stuff right here. And he was working through it. And now it's empty. And now we've got this. I've gone through everything. Therefore, we rest. I mean, remember, Eliza, a trial is sales. You're trying to convince somebody, buy my bullshit. And part of that is by wowing people. Yes, all that stuff is still no proof. I Am Princess said those binders aren't full. I understand. We're looking at that. But the jury's just going to see a banker's box exploding with stuff. Wasn't the jury thinking about why is he open any of those binders? No, because remember, they saw him with a big stack of paper he was working through. So I don't think so. So I maybe the jury's laughing at the binders. Sure. Did Hannah Reed help with the props? No. But guys, the fact that's there, because that's never been there before. Notice that. This has never been there. Now it's there. I mean, I don't know if Lally is, but if I was the prop, like I would demonstrate, I would use that. Because although the jurors have agreed, it doesn't quality over quantity. It's the quality of your evidence, not the quantity. I'd be showing like, look at all the shit I've got. I would make it look impressive and as assuming as I could. If I'm the defendants, I'm sure they're going to show. It's going to look. They're probably doing a little psychological warfare too. So that's not abnormal. It's just something I noticed there, and I didn't see that earlier. And I apologize. I would have brought it up sooner.
All right, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Commonwealth rest.
All right.
Your Honor, the defense would move the court for,
So I'm going to stop you right there. A short recess.
if the court needs one.
I don't need one, but I will see you at sidebar.
So they were going to do a motion to dismiss a directed verdict. The judge is not going to let you do that in front of the jury. So that's being done at sidebar. She's going to overrule it, and they're going to have to go into their case. So these guys, you know what? They don't look scared. Everything that's happened today is what they're expecting. I bet they didn't expect Dr. Scordi-Bello to be as helpful, but that was a bonus. That was a bonus for them. So here we go.
Charges.
You know. All right. So, Mr. Jackson, yesterday you told me you would like 10 minutes for your argument. I'll hear you now.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I'll be brief. The court must consider, after viewing the evidence in light most favorable to the Commonwealth, whether a rational jury
It's a motion to dismiss, Chad. Here we go.
find the elements of the
It's already. We already know it's going to fail, but these always fail. In a case like this, it's never going to happen.
charges beyond a reasonable doubt. And here, the case that the Commonwealth has submitted to the jury after resting is insufficient to meet such a finding. There's no question but that with this particular prosecution in this particular case, no reasonable or rational jury could come to a unanimous verdict in favor of the Commonwealth. I want to, if I can, focus my argument on count 1, 2, and 3 and a specific element of each count.
Okay.
In each one of those counts, there must be evidence that the vehicle killed John O'Keefe. There has been no competent evidence presented in the Commonwealth's case that Karen Reed's vehicle actually struck John O'Keefe. There's been conjecture, there's been speculation, but no actual competent evidence. The Commonwealth's entire case relies on a theory built on the shoulders of a trooper named Joe Paul, who testified a couple of days ago. And his theory, according to the Commonwealth, is that John O'Keefe's arm was struck, he was spun around in sort of a pirouette, he was projected 30 feet to the left, hit his head on a curb or the road in the intervening time before coming to a final rest spot about 30 feet away. Everything in the Commonwealth's case, everything relies on that theory of damage to the taillight at the scene. If a rational jury could not unanimously determine that Trooper Joe Paul's theory is true beyond a reasonable doubt, then we believe the motion has to be granted. There is no competent medical evidence to support that theory. There's no competent physical evidence that the taillight could break and shatter in the way that they've suggested, and that the arm would not have any breaks or shatters or any damage, any additional damage. There's no evidence how getting hit in the arm could actually launch a body 30 feet, as per the Commonwealth's theory. And there's no evidence how a body hit by a 7,000-pound SUV could sustain no injuries from the neck down, which we just heard this morning. The evidence before the court, the only evidence that is before the court, is that the Commonwealth's own medical examiner does not believe this is a homicide. And she went on this morning to say that in her expert opinion, the injuries are not classic pedestrian injuries. And they are, every single one of them, consistent with a physical altercation. Calling a witness to simply espouse an opinion like Trooper Paul did that belies science, common sense, or logic, that's not enough to get the case to the jury. The light most favorable to the Commonwealth does not mean that the court must believe the Commonwealth's witnesses. What it means is that if there's a rational controversy in the evidence, the court must accept that evidence that favors the Commonwealth. But here, there is no rational controversy. As put or expressed in Commonwealth versus McCormick, it's a 2023 case found at 491 Mass 848, pinpoint site 860, quote, where the Commonwealth's evidence is entirely circumstantial, it cannot meet its burden if the evidence equally supports inconsistent propositions, as resolution of such a case necessarily requires conjecture or surmise. In our view, there is no question that there's no rational controversy related to the Commonwealth's theory. Trooper Paul's theory is by definition not rational. It's not reasonable. And it's basically based entirely on conjecture. And that's why, in our view, the court is required to find Ms. Reed not guilty of counts 1, 2, and 3. It's because each of the counts, as I said at the beginning, necessarily include an element that John O'Keefe was struck by Karen Reed's vehicle. Thus, if a rational jury cannot reasonably believe Trooper Paul's theory, it's the only evidence presented by the Commonwealth describing how Mr. O'Keefe possibly could have been struck, then Ms. Reed is entitled to an acquittal. Nothing else matters. Nothing else in the court's evaluation, nothing else in the jury's evaluation, nothing. Everything turns on whether or not the car hit John O'Keefe. And the Commonwealth's only theory of how that happened is from Trooper Paul's description. If the court were to deny this motion, then by doing so tacitly the court is expressly endorsing Trooper Paul's theory of how John O'Keefe was struck, and we don't believe that's rational. We don't believe that any rational jury would ever unanimously agree with Trooper Paul, and thus we ask the court to find Ms. Reed not guilty at this time.
Okay.
I'll submit.
Your Honor, if I may just, we have a written motion for the
Okay.
court to act on pursuant to that argument. May I-
Yes.
may I copy this?
All right, I will hear you, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor. Surprisingly, I would disagree with counsel's
So let's leave the comment out.
Your Honor, as far as the comments, all I was going to say is that I would submit to the court
Is
that,
this surprisingly that I took issue?
and my apologies, what I would submit to the court, Your Honor, is that this case does not rest and fall with the testimony of Trooper Paul. Trooper Paul's testimony, while important when taken in conjunction with the remainder of all of the other witnesses and all of the other
No, Bam Bam. This is all done outside the jury's presence. These are arguments made outside the jury's presence. These are not these are summations of the case being made to the judge. You don't do these in front of the jury.
testimony that the court has heard. I don't want to minimize it, but at the same time, that is not the only evidence that the vehicle struck Mr. O'Keefe or interacted with Mr. O'Keefe. So what the court has, as far as the physical evidence, next to Mr. O'Keefe's body, one sneaker in the location of the curb, the glass, the drinking glass that Mr. O'Keefe is seen walking out of the Waterfall Bar at approximately 12:11 a.m. with, that is in the vicinity, the direct vicinity where the Canton police officers actually recover it early in the morning of January 29th. You have the microscopic pieces of the defendant's taillights, which was testified by Ms. Hanley to be consistent with pieces of the taillight from the defendant's vehicle that are within or embedded within Mr. O'Keefe's clothing. You have the remainder of the pieces of taillight, and this part is important in relation to Trooper Paul's testimony as far as the linear momentum, and it's all in the same sort of direction and path of all of the roadway evidence that he observed that's discovered in and around the area where Mr. O'Keefe's body was. The testimony from Ms. Mixlear, with reference to all of those taillight pieces and how they were able to reconstruct front pieces that were found on the ground and then put back together, matching with that with the taillight housing from the defendant's vehicle. The taillight housing from the defendant's vehicle, which has the victim's, Mr. O'Keefe's DNA contained on it, as well as the mitochondrial DNA testing of the hair that was on the rear right quarter panel of the defendant's vehicle, which also was matched or consistent with that of Mr. O'Keefe, his mitochondrial DNA, as well as the court heard from Ms. Chart from Voting Technology. You have the plethora of testimony from the various civilian witnesses from that particular night. You have the evidence of motive from the text communications, as well as the testimony of the children in this case as to the state of their relationship from the defendant's own mouth in those text communications and in those voicemails as to the state of their relationship. You have the testimony in regards to Mr. O'Keefe and his recounting of the state of their relationship and his numerous attempts to break it off with Ms. Reed prior to that date. There are arguments that continued throughout the afternoon of the 28th and seemingly into the 29th. You have the defendant's own statements that I hit him, that come from multiple sources, including Firefighter Nuttall, Firefighter Flamati, Firefighter McLaughlin, and Mr. Gay. You have her statements to the paramedics in the back of the ambulance that the last time that she saw Mr. O'Keefe, they had gotten into an argument. You have the testimony in regard to Ms. Roberts and Ms. McCabe as far as the altercation or the verbal arguments stemming from Ms. McCabe's reference of Bella's mother being a landmark, being someone that Mr. O'Keefe used to date just prior to that argument occurring in front of the house at 34 Fairview Road. With each and every piece of evidence that was presented throughout the course of the Commonwealth's case, including the forensic evidence, including especially one thing I would stress for the court is taking not only Trooper Paul's testimony, but Trooper Paul's testimony in juxtaposition to Trooper Dorino's testimony as far as the vehicle or the native GPS locations of Mr. O'Keefe's phone in reference to the timing and in particular the information or data from the Toyota.
You really shouldn't be juxtaposed, and you should
Dorino's
take it
GPS
in
native location of Mr. O'Keefe's phone has that reversal, the
total,
same reversal, the
but
same
whatever.
three-point turn that Trooper Paul testified about, which occurs 8 minutes prior to the vehicle traveling 24.2 miles per hour for approximately 62 feet in a straight line in reverse. And as far as the testimony and the evidence that the court has before it, the court also has those backup testing videos that Trooper Paul conducted with the defendant's vehicle. So the court can see exactly what that vehicle looks like at approximately 25 miles per hour in reverse in a straight line. And what I would submit, Your Honor, is that there's more than sufficient evidence from a medical perspective, from a forensic perspective, from a civilian witness perspective, and from the investigation of this case as to all three indictments that the Commonwealth has met its burden, particularly under the standard before the court at this time. And for those reasons, I would request that the defendant's motion be denied.
Okay. All right. In the light most favorable to the Commonwealth under the prevailing Lattimore standard here in Massachusetts, I am satisfied the Commonwealth has met its burden. The defendant's motion is denied. So, Mr. Yannetti, are you calling your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so let's bring the jurors in, please.
All right, guys, here we go. What the hell are we doing here? Let's go. Get in the jury.
The defendant has no burden of proof whatsoever, doesn't ever have to testify or present any evidence. So the Commonwealth has completed its case, the Commonwealth has rested, and I want you to keep in mind that the defendant has no burden of proof. Mr. Yannetti, do you have a witness for us?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. The defense calls Brian Loughran.
Okay.
He is. Watch your step.
You solemnly swear the evidence given to the court and jury in the case now hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Great. Can I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
Good morning, sir. In a good loud voice, would you state your name and spell your last name?
Sure, it's Brian Loughran. It's Loughran.
And where are you from,
Mr.
sir?
Loughran, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up as loud as you can, sir.
Sorry,
That's okay.
Maybe put your mouth as close to the mic as you can. Where did you grow up, sir?
Canton, Mass.
Is that where you live?
Yes,
How long have you lived there?
both 35, 36 years.
And did you go to Canton Public Schools?
Yes,
Now, in the course of living in Canton, were you familiar with the Albert family?
yes,
Which members of the Albert family were you familiar with?
all of them.
And when you say all of them, can you name the ones that you were familiar with?
I was familiar with Brian,
Brian Albert?
Chris Albert, Brendan Albert, Kevin Albert, and I believe Kathy Albert is the sister, but I'm not 100% sure on her first name.
Okay, and those are the siblings that you had contact with and were familiar with?
Yes,
Did you know some better than others?
yes,
Whom did you know the best?
Chris Albert.
What is the age difference between you and Chris Albert?
I believe we're the same age.
Did you graduate high school with him?
He went to a different high school, but yes,
Graduated at the same time.
correct.
And with regard to your familiarity with Chris Albert, can you explain to the jury how you became familiar with him and what your relationship with him has been?
I went to school with him, elementary school. We went to middle school. Then he transferred to a Catholic school. Then later in years, I began to work for Chris for D&E Pizza, delivering pizzas.
Okay. And approximately what ages were you when you were delivering pizzas for D&E Pizza and Chris Albert?
I was 25, 26 years old,
And how many years did you deliver pizzas for him?
up until I got married, 35,
So several years.
8 years.
8 years. Okay. And with regard to your interactions or knowledge of Kevin Albert, can you describe that?
Kevin Albert would be through D&E Pizza if he came in. Through the police department, would see him on details.
All right. And were you friendly with him?
Yes,
With regard to Brian Albert, could you describe your interactions or your relationship with him?
again, through D&E Pizzas, delivering pizzas to his house. Cordial, polite, would say hello.
All right. So you're friendly with the Albert family.
Correct.
Now, back in January of 2022, where were you working?
I was working for the town of Canton.
In what department?
I was working in the sewer department.
Is that also called the water department?
Yes, water and sewer are combined.
And under what heading is that?
The
water-
DPW.
It's under the DPW, the Department of Public Works.
Correct.
Now, back in January of 2022, were you one of the regular snow plowers for the town of Canton?
Yes.
And directing your attention to January 28th of 2022, do you remember that day?
Yes.
What do you remember about that day, the 28th?
It was a potential blizzard. We had been given a start time.
All right. And when you say you had been given a start time, what does that mean?
It means that we're expected to be in our trucks at a certain time on our route.
Okay. And who gives those instructions back in January of 2022?
The supervisor for the Canton DPW,
And who was that at the time?
William Walsh.
Also known as Billy Walsh?
Yes.
Now, when were you called in to do plowing that evening or early morning?
We were told to be in by 2:30
And is that 2:30 a.m. or p.m.?
a.m.
Would that now be on January 29th?
Correct.
So what time did you arrive at the DPW that early morning?
About 2:15.
When you got there, what did you need to do in order to go out plowing?
I needed to get into my truck and get that prepared to go out.
All right. And your truck, is there one that's specifically assigned to you when you plow?
Yes.
And does that truck have any particular nickname?
Yes, it's called the Franken truck.
And why is it called the Franken truck?
It is a truck that has a lot of different parts than what it's required. It's not parts that were made for that specific truck.
An older one?
Yes, it was a truck that was very uncomfortable at the beginning to use, so they try to make it as comfortable as possible.
All right. And that particular truck, is it used for anything else other than snow plowing?
Yes, it's used for everyday use.
Now, so you get to the DPW at 2:15, you say that you get your truck ready. What does that entail to get your truck ready, and how long does it take?
It takes about 5 minutes. We just basically you need to make sure that it's got enough gas in it, so we're not going to the route and running out of diesel fuel, which is not good. It's just basically going over the truck, making sure you have everything you need for that night.
And do you plow alone or with someone?
By myself.
Now, with regard to the visibility in your snowplow Franken truck, can you describe that for the jury, what you can see? What you can't see?
So the Franken truck has an air ride suspensions, an air ride seat. So the seat is raised so I can see over the hood.
Okay.
And I can see about 5 feet on either side of the passenger side, driver's side.
And when you say 5 feet, are you talking straight out from the?
From the windshield straight out.
All right. And what, if any, lighting do you have on Franken truck?
We have marking lights. We have 2 plow lights that are situated at the corners of the trucks, and it's up high. Illuminates very well. It's very well seen.
Okay. And with the extra set of lighting that you just described, how far can you see off to the sides in front of you and directly in front of you?
Probably 5 feet on the sides.
Well, you already testified to that, 5 feet straight out.
Yeah.
But what about the sides going forward?
It's hard to decide to
It's
put
hot.
into words, but I can see a real long distance. That visibility is fine. It is extremely. They gave me probably 5, 10 feet, 15 feet out, maybe even further.
And with regard to the lighting, how much light does that give off?
Enormous amounts. It's almost driving with the spotlight.
And with regard to the air ride seats, what action did you take with those that particular night?
I raised it so that the bottom of my knees would hit the steering wheel.
And what, if any, obstructions, I should say, were in front of you that would prevent you from seeing what's in front of you or to the side?
Nothing.
All right. Now, do you have a specific route assigned to you?
Yes, I do.
Could you describe that route? And by the way, that specific route, was that the one that you were assigned on January 29th?
Correct.
Could you describe that for the jury?
Yes, it's a route that consists of Cedar Crest from Kings Road to Chapman Street and everything in between. There are a lot of streets I could name if you would like, but Fairview is one, Spring Lane is one, Cedar Crest, Kings Road. Those are pretty important roads that were, I would consider major roads on my route.
All right. Now, that particular night, if you got there at 2:15, what time do you think you were on the road by in Frankentrunk?
I was on Cedar Crest about 2:30, 2:35.
Now, with regard to Cedar Crest, I would like to show you a map if I can. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I've handed you a document. If you could just review that to yourself and then look up at me when you're done. Do you recognize what's depicted on that?
Yes,
What is it?
it is my plow route and consisting of streets that I plow.
All right. And to be fair, that's a portion of your plow route, right?
Correct.
There are other areas of the city that you plow?
This actually depicts my actual physical route.
Oh, okay, great. And that's a fair and accurate representation of the streets as they existed back in January of 2022?
Yes.
I would offer that, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Lally?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you. And can I have permission to publish before the jury?
Sure.
Okay, now, you just testified that you got to Cedar Crest, I believe, you said 2:30 to 2:35 or so?
Correct.
All right, as we look at this exhibit on the screen, are you going from right to left or left to right on Cedar Crest when you first approach Fairview?
Right to left.
Okay, so you're going sort of from the upper right-hand corner of the diagram down Cedar Crest toward Fairview. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Could you take the laser pointer and just confirm that route for the jury? That's, okay. You see that's Fairview Road? Are you able to read that right?
I'm not, to be honest with you. I'm sorry.
Do you still have that map in front of you? Maybe that'll help you, Mr. Wall.
And actually, can I orient it so it's oriented just like that, Fran? Okay, that's how it's up on the screen.
Okay.
And by the way, I should have asked this, but is it in terms of is it you can't read the writing or you can't really see the outline of the streets?
Both.
Okay. Well, that's not going to help much. Okay. If we can have the lights back on. With the court's permission, can I leave that up on the screen while I ask a few more questions?
Sure, except he said can't see it.
Right. No, I know, but the jury can. So I think it would be helpful for them. All right. So you're coming down Cedar Crest, and would Fairview be on your left or your right when you first approach it?
When I first approach, it's on my left.
All right. Now, do you take that left at that time?
No, I do not.
Why not?
At the time, I'm pushing snow, and we don't want to block any part of the road with snow, and taking a left would have left a row of snow. So I proceed to the end of Cedar Crest, do a cul-de-sac, and then head back up Cedar Crest.
All right. So there's a cul-de-sac at the end of Cedar Crest.
Correct.
Dead end.
Yes.
And you plow that?
Yes.
All right. So then when you come back up, is Fairview on your right or your left?
It is on my right.
What do you do?
I take that right and continue to plow.
Now, are you familiar with the Albert residence on Fairview Road?
Yes.
How did you become familiar with that?
Growing up in Canton, I knew where they lived.
Can I have exhibit 66 displayed with the court's permission?
Yes.
From where you're seated now, Mr. Loughran, are you able to see what's on the screen?
Yes.
And do you recognize that?
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
That is the Albert house, Brian Albert's.
And when you were passing the Albert home on Fairview, the very first time you passed it, would it have been on your right or your left?
It would have been on my right.
What section of the road were you plowing at that point?
The middle of the road.
Why is that?
I start in the middle and I angle right with the plow.
Now, I want to direct your attention to when you were, your truck was essentially perpendicular to the driveway. You see the driveway in exhibit 66?
Yes, I do.
When you were perpendicular to the driveway, where were your headlights pointed?
In front of me, in front of the truck,
I'm sorry?
in front of the truck.
And what were you able to see of the front lawn of the Albert residence that very first time you passed?
I was able to see the entire front lawn.
And about what time was it that you first passed 34 Fairview Road?
About 2:45.
Now, as you continued along past the driveway, did you continue to have all of those headlights on in front of you?
Yes.
And as you continued along, what were you able to see of that front lawn? How much of it?
A very large portion, almost to the front steps.
And now, when you're plowing, where is your attention focused, sir?
My attention's focused in front of me and then to the sides.
Why would your attention be focused to the sides?
I am trying to be aware of any side traffic, any pedestrians, and God forbid, any animals.
And when you were passing the Albert residence, as you pass every home, what attention do you pay to the sides of the road and the lawns that are adjacent to the road?
I'm, again, making sure that there are no animals, no pedestrians, and making sure no one's coming out of their driveways, not expecting to see me.
And with regard to Exhibit 66, do you see the flagpole there?
Yes,
Is that something you had seen previously?
yes.
And when you made that first pass by that residence at 2:45 in the morning, sir, with your headlights on, what, if anything, did you see on the front lawn in the area of the flagpole?
I saw nothing.
If there had been a 6'2", 200-pound man lying in the snow there, would you have seen it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Now, once you pass the residence, where do you go?
I go to the end of Fairview.
And what street does that intersect with?
That intersects with Chapman Street.
If we have the previous exhibit, put back up with the court's permission. Sure. Okay. Do you still have the exhibit oriented the same way, sir?
Yes, I do.
Where's Chapman Street on the exhibit? Down the bottom, the top, or which?
Down the bottom.
Okay. And when you come to the end of Fairview with Cedar Crest in your rear now, right?
Correct.
Do you take a left or a right on Chapman?
I take a left
All right.
onto
And
Chapman.
once you take that left, what do you do?
I back up and then take a left to go back down Fairview.
Okay, so you're essentially doing almost a three-point turn in the road?
Correct.
All right. So now, do you go back down Fairview at that time?
Yes, I do.
And how far do you go down Fairview?
To the end, to Cedar Crest.
Now, at this point in time, you would also pass the Albert residence, correct?
Correct.
Would it be on your right or your left?
On my left.
Were you looking to the right and the left as you were coming down?
Yes.
How much light did your headlights illuminate of the Albert's front lawn as you were coming down from Chapman Street?
Coming down Chapman, just about the entire front lawn.
And again, with regard to that area around the flagpole, did you see anything on the lawn?
Nothing.
See a body?
No.
All right. Now, after you've done these two passes, sir, where do you go?
I then take a right on the Cedar Crest. I proceed up Spring Lane, come down Spring Lane, and then do the remaining of my route.
How long did it take you before you wound up back at Cedar Crest and Fairview?
About 45 minutes.
So I think you had previously testified you made the first pass around 2:45.
Correct.
So would that put us at about 3:30 when you're about to make the second pass?
Objection.
Sustained, ask a different.
Sure, I'm sorry. What time was it, your best estimate in terms of when you would have approached Fairview and Cedar Crest again?
3:15 to 3:30.
Now, when you approach that intersection again, are you approaching it such that Fairview would be on your left or your right this time?
On my left.
Same as last time.
Correct.
What do you do when you approach Cedar Crest? I'm sorry, when you approach Fairview and it's on your left?
At that point, I have an option. I can go to the end of Cedar Crest, or I can turn around at a street, depending on how much snow I have on Fairview.
And with regard to the decision you made regarding that choice, what decision did you make on January 29th?
Went all the way to the end.
Went all the way to the end of Cedar Crest.
Correct.
Same thing you did the first time.
Correct.
And then you come back up.
Correct.
Is Fairview on your right or your left at that time?
It would be on my right.
And did you take that right?
Yes, I did.
What, if anything, unusual did you see at that time?
At that point, I saw a Ford Edge on the side of the road
Where was it parked on the side of the road?
in front of the Albert's house,
Where in front of the Albert's house?
by the flagpole.
And why was that unusual?
The Alberts never had cars that were parked out front, and it just stuck out as weird.
Now, what were the snow conditions like at that point? This is now, I think you said about 3:15 or 3:30.
It's starting to accumulate a lot quicker than what it was previous.
And what policies does the DPW have regarding cars parked in the streets during a blizzard where there's plowing to be done?
We are to notify the supervisor. At that point, he will make a phone call to the police, and depending on if they can have the resident move it, it gets moved. If not, it gets towed.
And with regard to that policy, did you comply with that policy in those early morning hours?
No, I did not.
Why?
because I was being courteous to the Albert family.
Now, once you saw the Ford Edge parked on the side of the road near that flagpole, what did you do?
I had to go around the vehicle and as to not hit the vehicle.
All right, and probably obvious, but as you're approaching the vehicle, was it faced in the same direction that you were traveling?
Yes,
And so you're going around to the left or the right of the vehicle?
left.
And once, as you were approaching that vehicle, were you able to see on the right side of that vehicle the lawn sign?
Yes,
Did you see anything on the front lawn at that time?
Objection.
I'll allow it. Did you see anything?
no,
The lights were still on.
correct,
All right, now, once you passed the vehicle, did anything attract your attention at all?
no.
All right, where do you go?
I go up to the end of Fairview and do the same process, take a left on Chapman and back down Chapman and take a left into Fairview again.
Once you come back down Fairview, do you pass the Albert residence again?
Correct.
Was there that car that you saw?
Correct.
It moved from when you passed it the first time.
No,
Were you able to see the front lawn of the Alberts in front of you as you were coming down Fairview toward
Okay.
Cedar Crest?
not as much as the first time because the car blocked the view.
All right. Now, after that, how long did it take you before you came back to that area to
So there was a car that got moved right where John was. That's interesting. Of course. You hide the body.
plow again?
About 3 hours.
Do you recall about what time it was that you wound up back on Fairview?
I don't honestly recall what specific time.
Sure.
Um,
Approximately, if it was 3:15 to 3:30, that second time, what would be your best estimate of the time when you came back?
I would say if I had to say, it would have been 5:30 up Fairview, and came back down, and then at that point I wasn't able to go further than Carriage Lane.
Okay, and when you say that you went up Fairview and came back down, you initially went from which side of Fairview?
Right side.
What would that be, the right side? I'm sorry. Would it be the Cedar Crest side or the,
It would have been Cedar Crest side.
coming from Cedar Crest, and then you went up Fairview, came back down?
Came back down. As I'm going up, I am actually seeing first responders, and at that point, as I'm coming back down, the road's blocked at that point.
Okay. And when the road was blocked, what, if any, plowing were you able to do after that on Fairview?
I was able to go as far as Carriage Lane, and then turn around.
Okay. And then I imagine it was several hours before you could plow again?
Before I could plow Fairview to the end of Cedar Crest, yes.
All right. Now, I'd like to direct your attention to February 15th of 2022. We were approached by an investigator who wanted to ask you questions about what you had seen and done on January 29th of 2022. Do
Yes,
you remember his name?
yes.
What is it?
Paul?
And what was your understanding about whom Paul worked for?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
On February 15th of 2022, were you ever approached by anybody in law enforcement, sir?
No.
So what was your understanding of Paul's job?
Objection.
I'll see Councilor Taiba.
Oh, good boy. How you doing, buddy? I know. So, yeah, this is interesting, guys. You know, I heard all that nonsense about the cars, and I'm like, well, it's making sense. And the Alberts own a couple of Ford Edges, which I've never, like, those cars, I've driven them before. I did not like the front view out of those. That was a very awkward setup. But yeah, there were an Edge parked out front. So, yeah. Paul's the defense investigator. Well, I didn't know if they're talking about Trooper Paul. Oh, you on your back, Bubba? Okay, I got you. There you go. So let's see. Trooper Paul didn't identify himself as a cop. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Let's see here.
At any point,
So,
just a couple questions, Mr. Loughran.
Sure.
At any point in 2022,
looking for food, huh?
were you ever approached by any police investigators, sir?
No.
When was the first time that you were approached by the state police in this case? Do you recall?
I don't recall the actual date, but I do know.
Year?
Yes.
What year was that?
2023.
And do you recall the name of the investigator that approached you?
Mike Proctor and Sergeant, and I can't pronounce his name. I don't want to.
If I said Buchanan, would that ring a bell?
Yes, it is.
He doesn't want to say bukkake.
I have nothing further. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Lally?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
May I approach?
Yes.
Sir, I'm showing you a document that's already been marked with Exhibit 109. Just ask you to look at that, look up whenever you're finished, okay?
Yes.
You recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
These are the plow routes for the town of Canton.
And there's different numbers that are associated with different routes and different drivers assigned to those routes. Is that right?
Yes.
And if you look down at number 11, is that your route that you were talking about as far as for a portion of Cedar Crest neighborhood that you plow?
Yes.
And that's the route that you were assigned to on January 28th into January 29th of 2022, correct?
Yes.
Now, if I could ask, just as far as there's a certain way that
Oh,
you
so
plow
there's
a
a
road.
defense
a
PI
road.
named Paul too. Okay.
Excuse me. There's a certain way that you plow a road, correct?
Correct.
And when you're first plowing the road, you're sort of plowing the middle of the road, correct?
Correct.
And you do it in sort of a fashion that's referred to as ring road right. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury what that is and sort of why you're plowing a road in that particular fashion when you're first starting to get out there with the plow?
So ring road to the right refers to the snow coming off the plow. It actually leaves a row of snow. We ring road to the right to prevent cars from having to go through the ring road to the left. If you go to the left, you've now put the ring road in the middle of the left-hand lane. So everything's to the right.
So everything's to the right because if there was a vehicle coming the other way, you'd be plowing into that vehicle. Is that correct?
Correct.
And your goal, sort of, when you're first getting out there to plow the roads, is to sort of clear the middle of the roadway first, correct?
Correct.
So that's where your truck is when you first go out and plow the road. Is you're sort of in the middle of the road near the double yellow line, if there is one on that road.
Correct.
Okay. Now, this truck that you were driving, on that day, how long have you been assigned to that truck for plowing purposes?
I was assigned to that truck for probably 2 years, maybe longer.
Maybe longer. Were you driving that same truck in 2015?
No.
No. Okay, so you were driving a different truck at that point.
Correct.
You remember what kind of truck that was?
It was an F550 utility truck, pickup truck.
Similar in size or shape to the truck that you were driving that day?
No.
Now, you were asked some questions about February 15, 2022, and you spoke to some investigator on that day, correct?
February 15th?
Yes, 2022. That Paul person you were talking
Yes.
about. Okay. And you met him at a skating rink, is that right?
Correct.
And you said in a statement to him at that time that you would have seen a body on the front lawn or the sidewalk, is that right?
Correct.
Now, are you aware that there is no sidewalk on the same side of the street as 34 Fairview Road?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned some familiarity with the Alberts and with the Albert resident. Are there other people on that route that you're familiar with as far as where they live and who they are and all that?
Yes.
And how are you equally familiar with them, more familiar with them, or less familiar with them?
Equally.
Equally? Now, familiarity with 34 Fairview Road, does that extend to sort of the lighting around that area?
No.
So do you know that there is actually no street lighting whatsoever in the area of the fire hydrant, the flagpole, or anywhere there for several hundred feet?
Correct.
So you do know.
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
And so when you're driving by, you're looking for cars coming out of the driveway, cars coming in the opposite direction, people walking, is that correct?
Correct.
And you're trying to look for those objects so that you make sure that you don't strike them or hit them or anything like that, correct?
Correct.
And on February 15th, 2022, when you had this meeting with Paul, you told him about 3:30 or 4 a.m. Is when you saw this Ford Edge on Cedar Crest, correct?
Correct.
Now, in fact, when you first spoke to this individual named Paul, you didn't tell him it was a Ford Edge, correct?
Nope. Told him it was a Ford Edge.
You didn't tell him first that it was a small SUV?
Nope. Told him it was a Ford Edge.
You remember at any time Paul taking you on the parking lot and showing you different vehicles and asking you if those vehicles matched what vehicle you saw?
No. He wanted to make sure that what I was telling him was accurate. So he showed me what was a Ford Edge, but I had already told him it was a Ford Edge.
So he brought you out to the parking lot at the skating rink that you were meeting at, specifically showed you a Ford Edge and asked you if that was the vehicle.
Correct.
Now, do you know sort of the difference between, if you were to see a Ford Edge at nighttime in a snowstorm, the difference between a Ford Edge and a Jeep Cherokee?
Yes.
What's the difference?
The taillights in the back.
What about it?
Ford Edges are more round. The whole back facade is a little bit more round. A Jeep Cherokee are more square.
Now, what color was this SUV that you saw?
I can't tell you that. I am colorblind.
Can you tell, I'm just curious, sir, as far as your colorblindness, can you tell whether or not an object is dark or light just by looking at it? Or you
I
can't
can
tell?
I can see things that are light. I can see things that are dark. I can see true colors. I can't see shades of true colors.
And so from what you saw, was this light or dark?
Light.
Now, you told this Paul individual on February 15th that the SUV that you saw was exactly where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
Correct.
How do you know where his body was found?
I told him specifically if he was looking at the door, the front door, it was about 3 feet to the left of the door. And with
To the left of the door?
looking at the front of the door to the left of the door, pushing it up Fairview.
So if he wrote in his report that you told him that the vehicle was exactly where the body was found, that would not be true?
Objection.
No, I'll allow that.
Could you repeat that question, please?
If he wrote in his report that you told him that the SUV was exactly where the body was found, that would not be true, would it not?
That would be true. The car was to the left of the door, putting it in front of the flagpole.
My question for you, sir, is how do you know where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found? At any point in time, did you see Mr. O'Keefe's body on the front lawn?
No.
So how do you know where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found?
Through police reports, police interviews, stuff that was posted on the media.
So you've seen police reports
Good
in the
answer.
media,
Well, not the
correct?
police reports, I'm sorry, but what was said during on the news.
So what you've heard on the news, not necessarily what you saw or what you know yourself, correct?
Could you repeat that question, please?
You're recounting sort of what you've heard or saw on the news, and so this doesn't come from your personal knowledge or anything about where Mr. O'Keefe was, correct?
Correct.
Now, you also spoke with some other individuals in May of 2023, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you tell those individuals that you actually came in, and when you say came in, you come into sort of the main sort of hub or the shed on Boulevard Street, correct?
Correct. We punch in.
That's where you punch in and you pick up your truck and you sort of do your checkpoint around the truck and then you go out and plow.
Correct.
Now, you were plowing on this street. Was there any other sort of subcontractor or anything else that was working plowing the roads as well?
Yes.
And who was that?
It was by the yard landscaping.
And so they assist as far as the plow route is concerned, and they go around and they plow things on the same route that you were describing, correct?
Correct.
Gosh.
Now, these other people that you talked to in May of
Wow, you're not
2023, did you
helping.
tell them at that time that you actually came in around 11:30 p.m. to 12 a.m.?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that, or you didn't tell them?
I don't remember that.
So that would be a significant difference, 11:30 p.m. to 12 a.m. from 2:15 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., correct?
Correct.
Now, you also indicated to them at that time that you went past Fairview at approximately 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., correct?
I never did 12, but it was definitely 2:30,
So if they wrote
2:40,
that in a report, that
2:35.
would be inaccurate as well, correct?
Sustained, and only one person can talk at a time.
I apologize. I'm sorry, sir. Please continue and finish your answer.
I didn't hear the question.
Okay. Well, let me ask it again. So as far as if that was contained within a report regarding that conversation in May of 2023, that you went past Fairview Road or went down Fairview Road at 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., that would not be accurate, correct?
Objection.
Sustained, ask it differently.
Did you go down Fairview Road at 12 a.m. and 2 a.m.?
No.
If that were contained in a report of your conversation you had in May of 2023, would that be accurate?
Oh my God.
Sustained, ask it differently, Mr. Loughran.
Now, as far as that conversation that you had in May of 2023, did you tell those individuals that you saw the vehicle around 1:30 or 2 in the morning?
Again, I don't remember ever saying that.
Is that accurate as far as whether or not you told them that?
Again, I don't remember saying that.
Did you see a vehicle around 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning?
I wasn't on the road at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning.
Correct. Now, do you also recall telling those individuals that Fairview Road was blocked off by cruisers at about 3 or 3:30 in the morning?
Again, that would have been incorrect.
Do you recall saying that in May of 2023?
I do not.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Show counsel.
Oh my God, Lally, come on.
So I'm going to ask you to read, showing you a document. I'm going to ask you to read this paragraph, and this paragraph to yourself, okay? And then whenever you're done, just read it, right? Are you finished, sir?
Yes.
May I approach this retrieval?
Yes.
Come on. Oh my God, this is killing me.
Mr. Loughran,
I
after
didn't
having
realize
reviewed
my,
that, is your memory refreshed as to
yeah,
that
sorry
conversation you
about
had in May of 2023?
No, it does not.
Do you still, after reading that, don't recall telling anybody in May of 2023 that you came in around 11:30 p.m., 12 a.m. on the 28th, 29th?
I never came in at 11:30, 12:30 at night. It was 2:30 calling.
You don't recall indicating to anyone in May of 2023 that you went past Fairview at 12 a.m. and 2 a.m.?
Correct. Never did.
And you don't recall telling anyone that you saw the car around 1:30 or 2 a.m.? Is that correct?
Correct.
And you don't recall telling anybody that the part of Fairview containing 34 Fairview was blocked off at 3 or 3:30 a.m., correct?
Correct.
Now, if the part of Fairview that you were talking about, so you didn't say that in May of 2023, because at 3 or 3:30, the roadway wasn't blocked off, correct?
Correct.
It was blocked off sometime around 6 a.m., correct?
Correct.
And so if you had said that the roadway was blocked off at 3 or 3:30 in the morning, and it was actually 6, then when you saw the vehicle would have been off a little bit as well, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Seeing the car at 1:32 in the morning, with the road being blocked off at 3 or 3:30 in the morning, if the road's blocked off at 6 a.m., then that actually would have been, you saw a car sometime around 5 a.m., correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Sure you didn't see a black Lexus SUV in front of the house at 34 Fairview Road around 5 a.m.?
No.
Now, you also were asked some questions and you spoke to some troopers in August of 2023, correct?
Correct.
And County Canton, they have a parking ban in Canton, is that correct?
Correct.
That goes from November until April?
Correct.
Now, part of your plow route is a road called Tippy Cart, correct?
Correct.
Where is Tippy Cart in relation to Fairview?
It is on top of it's on the right side of Cedar Crest. It would put it 2 streets up before Fairview.
And at some point, when you were plowing on Tippy Cart that night, you actually hit a basketball hoop, is that right?
Yes.
And did you call that in?
Yes.
And as a result of that, what happened with the basketball hoop after that?
Nothing. The point was to make sure I was covered, basically. That's why I notified my supervisor.
Why are you bringing this up? The guy, unlike here's the thing. This is the funny thing here. Listen to this. Unlike all the fucking shitbag cops who don't do their job the way they're supposed to, this guy, a public servant, hit something with his city vehicle, and he immediately notified. I was like, was there true you had a basketball hoop? Yeah, and he told the truth. He didn't fucking lie about it. This is not the right witness to fuck with. This guy's just a working stiff. Guy just ran a fucking snowplow. And it sounds like Lally's acting like a dick to him. This is Lally getting crazy. It's the wrong fucking guy to do it on.
That I hit the basketball hoop.
And about what time was that you hit the basketball hoop?
I don't recall.
Is it closer to when you started, closer to when you ended?
I don't recall. I don't recall what time.
So you don't recall anything specific about that time, correct?
No, just that I know I hit the basketball net.
And obviously, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or anything, sir, but you didn't intentionally hit the basketball hoop, correct?
Correct.
So you hit it because you didn't see it, correct?
No, I was attempting to avoid the net by going around it. And the machine had a different size body than what it originally had. And I underestimated when I was going around that I need to be wider.
So you misjudged the distance. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah, he misjudged the distance probably by about a foot because the plow had they had a different blade on the machine. What a fucking asshole Lally is. Yeah, let's see.
Very pro Trump.
Okay.
Here's the neat thing, guys. When you're telling the truth, it's almost impossible to get trapped. When you're telling the truth, it's very easy to get, like, somebody tries to trap you, you just walk through the trap and nothing happens. Traps are meant for shit people and shit witnesses. Fucking liars get caught in traps. This guy's not a liar. This guy's doing his job and Lally's trying to fucking ride his ass. Bullshit, man. Remember, if you always tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. Yep. Who's Karen looking at us? Oh, she's looking at them, but she's looking at us too, chat.
Now, sir, at some point prior to coming in here and testifying today, have you met with Mr. Unetti?
Yes,
How many times?
twice.
And when were those times?
Tuesday and Saturday.
Tuesday and Saturday. When, sir?
Tuesday of last week, Saturday of last week.
And this Paul person that you spoke of before, was that person present there as well?
Yes,
And did you make note of Paul writing anything down, or Mr. Unetti writing anything down while you were talking to them?
no,
And as far as you're aware, there's no reports that were generated from any of those conversations or any of those meetings. Is that correct?
correct.
So, sir, I'm correct if I say that you're sure about every time that you went down Fairview Road and everything that you saw going down Fairview Road, but you're completely unaware of the time that you ran into and struck a basketball hoop that night. Is that correct?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
You're sure about all the times that you went down Fairview Road,
Yes,
and you have no idea what time that you went on Tippy Cart and you struck the basketball hoop. Is that right?
if you ask me to guess, I can guess for you.
I'm not asking you to guess, sir. I'm asking you not to know.
I don't recall exactly what time I hit that net.
Nothing further.
All right. Anything, Mr.
Very
Unetti?
briefly, there's just one question I want to clear, make sure that we understand what's going on.
So no statements, right? Just ask a question.
I always do that. I apologize, Your
Okay.
Honor. You were asked a question by Mr. Lally. Are you sure you didn't see a black Lexus at around 5 a.m. in front of Fairview? And your answer was no. And my question to you is, does that mean that you're not sure if you saw one or that you didn't see it?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
I did not see a Lexus at 5 a.m.
At any point that night while you were plowing,
No,
you ever see a black Lexus in front of 34 Fairview?
no,
Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Very briefly, based on your
Ow!
timeline, were you on Fairview Road at 5 a.m.?
yes.
How so, sir?
It was about 3 hours after the last time I went on it. So it put me, I was last on it at about 3:45.
fucking stepping
About
on your dick,
5:30.
Lally.
You were on the road about 2:45, and you said it took you about 45 minutes to sort of do the loop and come back, correct?
Correct.
And from the time that you were on there, including the time that it took you to plow and the time that it took you to do all of those things along the route, you're coming back to Fairview Road at 45 minutes later, or it took you 45 minutes to do the route?
It was about 45 minutes.
And so from there, 45 minutes from what time are we talking that you were first there? Said about 2:45 or so?
About 3:30. With
About 3:30. Okay,
Yeah.
so about 3 hours after that would then be about 6:30, correct?
it was about, I mean, I know I went up there and saw the first responders coming down. And when I,
What I'm asking is, you would testify that you may, or you were on Fairview Road around 5 a.m. If you're not returning for 3 hours later, and that's about 6:30 from 3:30, correct?
correct,
So then you were not on Fairview Road at 5 a.m., correct?
I was. The time that it took me to do what I needed to do put me there about 5. So when I'm coming down Cedar Crest from doing my route, I am constantly looking at Fairview to make sure that it's considered a main road. So we need to take that as a priority. So if it's a lot of snow on that road, I'm going to go turn around and do the road so that the road is available. So first responders have access to that road.
So, sir, what I'm saying is you testified, your timeline, that you
Yep.
came down there around 6:30 in the morning, correct?
My timeline was 5:30.
The 3
5:30?
hours after 3:30.
It was 45 minutes.
No, 45 minutes was from 2:45 to get you to 3:30. Then 3 hours later, it's 6:30,
It was
correct?
it was about 45 minutes because I didn't get a lot of time. At that time, the snow was coming down at a significant rate, and I needed to make sure Fairview was kept clear. So I come down and I check. So I have the streets are all around Fairview. They're 5-10 minutes around Fairview. So the furthest street from Fairview is Kings Road.
And so my question is, sir, are you talking about coming down Fairview, or are you talking about being on another road and looking at Fairview,
Coming down Cedar Crest, looking at Fairview.
despite that timeline that you gave her?
I am always looking at that street.
Nothing.
All right, Mr. Loughran, you are all set, sir.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Dr. Willoughby Russell to join us.
Okay.
Step for me.
Please tell me so the evidence of the court during the case now and here should the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Take a seat.
All right, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Russell, could you please, in a loud, clear voice, state your name and spell your last name for us?
Hi, Dr. Marie Russell, Russell.
Doctor, what do you do for a living?
I'm an emergency room forensic pathologist, just recently retired.
And prior to your retirement, what was your position?
The immediate position before retirement was chief medical executive at for the state of California at the Corcoran State Prison.
And
So,
please-
Dr. Russell, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up, okay?
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a couple of air conditioners in here. Just keep your voice as loud as possible. What is, in fact, an emergency physician?
An emergency physician is a medical specialist who has completed a residency, internship residency in the field of emergency medicine, which is a field which involves taking care of patients that are sick or injured and go to the emergency room.
Can you tell us what your education, starting with your education, training, and background is that qualifies you as an emergency physician, starting with your education all the way back to college?
Okay. Well, I have completed at least 16 years of formal education beyond high school, which includes college, and then 4 years of medical school, then 4 years of emergency medicine residency and internship, and then 4 years of pathology residency, which includes 2 years of anatomic and 2 years of forensic pathology. And then I treated, I've taken a bunch of other courses and attended seminars.
Let's start with your college. Where'd you go to college? Where'd you start?
Okay. MIT. I did my first year at MIT where I took my pre-med courses.
And then what happened after that? By the way, about what year was that?
Oh, that was in 1972 to 73.
Where did you go after MIT?
So what happened? I was interested in becoming a doctor, and so I took the pre-med courses, and then subsequent to that first year, I learned that my mother had metastatic breast cancer, and so decided to go home to New York to be with her. After that, she subsequently passed away, and I returned to Massachusetts and decided to take advantage of the time off from school to investigate my interest in law enforcement. And I subsequently became a police officer here in Massachusetts.
So following MIT, did you go to a police academy?
I did.
Which police academy did you go to?
I went to the Boston Police Academy.
And did you end up becoming a sworn officer?
Yes,
For how long?
I did it for 7 years full time.
And what department did you work for?
I worked for the City of Malden Police Department
What years was that, if you could give me a range?
from 1977 to 1984.
During the time that you were a Malden police officer, did you also go to school and continue your formal education?
I did.
Describe that for us, please.
Well, I took specialized courses through the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council.
Objection, move to strike.
All right, so I'm going to strike that. Jurors disregard that.
Let me ask you this way. I don't want to get into the specifics.
Okay.
While you were a police officer, did you also take formal education before you did your medical training or your college?
Yes, I did.
That's what I'm interested in.
Okay.
Tell us about that.
Oh, yeah. So I attended Northeastern University part-time and received a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology.
After you got your degree in psychology from Northeastern, did you go on to continue your education in medicine?
I did. I attended medical school at the University of Massachusetts Medical School from 1983 to 1987.
Also known as UMass?
Yes,
Did you ultimately end up with a medical degree?
did. Doctor,
After you became a doctor, did you engage in a residency?
yes.
What years were the residency, that first residency?
So the first residency was from 1987 to 1991, and that was in Los Angeles at the Los Angeles County University of Southern California Medical Center.
Is that also known as LAUSC?
It was at the time, yes.
And that's associated with the University of Southern California Medical Center, is that right?
Yes.
After your first residency, by the way, what was your first residency in? What was the subspecialty?
So it was in emergency medicine, and USC is a very large trauma center.
How would you describe the size and volume of the USC Trauma Center?
Well, it's one of the busiest in the United States.
After your first residency in emergency medicine, did you do a second residency?
Yes.
What was the subspecialty in that second residency?
So I did a 2 years in anatomic pathology and 2 years as a fellow in forensic pathology at the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office.
So you did 2 full residencies after you became a doctor, is that right?
That is correct.
What's the difference? I don't want to go into great detail, but what's the difference between an emergency physician and, for instance, the residency that you did in pathology, both anatomic pathology and forensic pathology? What are the differences?
Well, generally, the emergency physician treats live patients, and the spectrum of injuries can be wide, or illnesses can be wide, and the forensic pathologist treats or deals with deceased patients generally.
Did you become a fellow at the LA Coroner's Office following your second residency?
No, that was part of the second residency.
Understood. Describe that fellowship.
So that was 2 years of full-time work at the LA Coroner's Office under the supervision of very experienced medical examiners. And what I did was I did autopsies, every day, 1 or 2 autopsies every day, attended conferences, and read journal articles, etc. It was a very formalized education.
Did you also become, at some point, a professor or an assistant professor at LAUSC, the medical center side, the university side?
Yes. So while I was doing the forensic pathology and anatomic pathology residencies during the daytime, I worked as a full-time ER doc supervisor in the capacity of an assistant professor in the evenings.
Did you also become an adjunct professor at Cal State Los Angeles, California State Los Angeles?
Yes.
Is that a separate university?
Yes.
And you had separate responsibilities as a professor in that role?
Yes.
Were you also teaching legal medicine and forensic medicine in that capacity?
That is correct. It was a master's level program.
How long were you an ER physician in total and an attending physician for Los Angeles County USC Medical Center?
29 years in total. 4 of those were in training and the rest were as a supervisor. And
Of your 29 years, 25 of your 29 years, you were supervising others,
correct.
meaning other doctors,
Other doctors, yes.
teaching other doctors,
Yes.
and teaching medical students.
Yes, and seeing their cases. Once they examined the patient, they would present their case or tell me about the case, and then I would go in and see those patients in addition to my patients.
That was my next question, doctor. In addition to teaching, were you also specifically assessing, diagnosing, and treating patients of your own?
Yes, not all the time. Some shifts I didn't have to do that, but much of the time, yes.
For the bulk of the 29 years that you were an ER doc, an emergency physician, in other words, were you also attending to patients as well?
Yes.
Once you left that fellowship with the LA Coroner's Office, did you remain active in any way or connected to the Los Angeles Coroner's Office?
Yes. So I would attend their weekly conferences when I could, when I was available and to do so. And I also consulted on some cases with them. So if they had something that was interesting and beyond their clinical expertise, they would sometimes consult me.
During your tenure at LAUSC, did you become the director of any of their sub-programs?
Yes.
Can you describe that for the jurors, please?
Yes, I was a director of the USC Center for Life Support Training. So, that involved teaching other doctors life support courses such as advanced cardiac life support, or that we teach the surgeons advanced trauma life support.
I'm sorry.
Well, go ahead.
Were you also a director for their quality improvement in the early 2000s?
Yes, for the emergency medicine department.
What was the reason for the quality improvement program, if you will, for LAUSC?
Well, for any program, it's ideal to have a quality improvement component, because what you want to do is look at cases that were treated and see if there were any errors, and if so, correct the errors, teach the doctors that involved, what went wrong, and try to make systemic improvements or teaching improvements to prevent those errors from occurring in the future.
Were you teaching basically best practices for emergency room physicians as well as trauma physicians and surgeons?
Yes, we tried.
And you were the director of that program, correct?
Yes.
Did you also become the director of LAUSC Jail Medical Services?
Yes.
What is the connection or the tether between the jail system in Los Angeles and LAUSC Medical Center?
Well, LAC Jail Ward was established about 70 years ago, and it was a place that the officers from various agencies, such as LA Sheriffs, LAPD, California Highway Patrol, or any of the municipalities around, could bring people that they arrested who were in need of medical care.
So the jail system, very large jail system, I'm guessing, in Los Angeles, correct?
Correct, yes.
There have to be medical attendants to that jail system, correct? Yes. And you became the director of the jail medical services for the entirety of that system?
For the hospital component of it.
Understood. In California, you're obviously licensed in California.
Yes.
There is a state medical board in California, correct?
Yes.
And did you ever do any work with that state medical board?
Yes, I worked with them for about 7 years part-time as a regular employee embedded in their enforcement unit. And what that involved was examining cases that were referred to the medical board because of substandard care or illegal activities of the providers. It was for physicians and physician assistants that we regulated.
What was your title with the state medical board for those purposes?
The title was medical consultant. That was the official title.
Okay. And then before your retirement, by the way, what years were you the medical consultant for, or a medical consultant for the state board in California?
I think from 2009 to 2016. I think those were the years. I'm not positive.
All right.
I did that. That was a job I was doing when I was doing the LA County USC Medical Center job too. It was an extra job.
So you didn't stop working as a physician, an emergency physician at LAUSC to take that position?
No.
You just consulted with them?
I did it once a week, 1 day a week.
Got it. And then with regard to one of your last positions that you held, did you become the chief medical executive for the California State Prison Courtroom?
Yes.
Tell me about that position and the years that you held that position.
So that was from 2018 to 2023. And as the chief medical executive, I was the supervisor of all the doctors and nurse practitioners that provided care to the inmates.
And obviously the California prison system is a very large prison system.
Very.
Doctor, are you board certified in emergency medicine?
Yes.
Are you a member of the National Association of Medical Examiners?
Yes, I'm actually fellow status, which is higher than member.
Are you a member of the American Academy of Forensic Science?
Yes, again, I'm a fellow there.
Which also is an advancement above just being a member?
Correct.
Have you ever published in the area, and now I'm going to get very specific, have you ever published peer-reviewed articles and done research in the area of animal bites and scratches?
Yes.
Did you author or co-author a peer-reviewed article named Managing Law Enforcement Dog Bites in the ER?
Yes,
About what year was that?
it was in the 1990s.
Late 1990s, 1996, does that
Yes.
sound right? Did you also author or co-author an article called Law Enforcement Canine Dog Bites, Injuries, Complications, and Trends?
Yes,
So given those articles, did you study specifically dog bites, dog wounds on the human body?
yes, I have a very strong interest in wounds in general, and I have a strong interest in dog bites in particular.
During the course of your career, your professional experience, how many patients would you say you've seen or treated with animal injuries, including bites and scratches?
It's very hard to estimate, but between my own practice and the residents that I supervised, it was, I'm sure, well over 500, and could possibly be double that.
Could be up as many as 1,000.
It could be, yes.
Have you qualified as an expert in emergency medicine in the past?
Yes,
You qualified as an expert in the area of forensic pathology and wounds in the past.
yes,
Is that both in federal and state courts?
yes.
Doctor, were you asked to review certain materials related to this case in furtherance of coming to some opinions and conclusions about injuries suffered by John O'Keefe specific to his right arm?
Yes.
What did you review in coming to your opinions and conclusions?
Well, I reviewed hospital records and pictures taken of him in the hospital, when he was in the hospital. I reviewed autopsy records, the autopsy report, and photographs taken during and before the autopsy. I reviewed. Let's see. I reviewed reviewed the grand jury testimony of the autopsy pathologist. I reviewed affidavit of Dr. Sheridan. I reviewed the town of Canton dog bite reports about regarding incidents.
Section, may we approach?
Yes.
Oh, she was going to talk about Chloe's bite history. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, she was about to talk about it. She was about to get Chloe's bites in. Oh, yeah. Interesting. Ladybug Lisa says, is that the real Nancy Grace in chat? No, it's not. Nancy Grace would not. She would not grace a place like this. This is like a dive bar. That's just somebody being a smartass. Luke says, speaking of Turtle Boy, the state's been trying to indict Karen on conspiracy to commit intimidation for the past 3 months. Yeah, but I think they're going to have a tough time with that, especially if she wins this, then it's malicious prosecution coming that way. Bam Bam says, you can customize playback speed. You can. Yep. Why is Lally so aggressive? I mean, to be fair, these are not his witnesses, so he's going to be more aggressive with them than his own witnesses because his own witnesses are favorable. So I don't mind, like, he's going to be a dick, but there's ways you can be a dick without being a dick. Because right now, all that jury sees is him being a fucking asshole, and that's not a good look. Lally needs to work on that. But yeah, he's not helping himself. So let's keep going, though. Chat. But you guys are asking great questions. And guys, if you're new, my name's Sean. I'm potentially criminal. I'm an attorney in Cleveland, Ohio. If you have questions, throw them in here. Be happy to answer them for you. No such thing as a dumb question. So I see some new names. So welcome. This is day 29 of Karen Reed. It's from Friday, yesterday. And we're just catching up. So let's see here. And then Amateur Iconoclast gifted a membership. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the help. And False Prophet says, with most of the issues of our justice system can be mooted, if judges stop being bitches and dismiss these cases. I wholeheartedly agree, man. But, sadly, that ain't the world we live in, which is that's a bullshit answer, but it's also the truth. I agree. They should, but they won't. Oh, but they won't. But I'm right there with you, brother. So let's get back to the show. I do not shame chat for stupid questions. Can I give my 9-year-old cocaine? Is that a dumb question? Okay. No, that's not a dumb question. That's a horribly stupid and criminal and shitbag thing to do, though. Hella's birthday stream is at 6:30. Yeah. We're going to probably finish this witness and then we're going to end for the day, guys, and start hanging out with Hella for her birthday. And we'll finish up tomorrow with part 2 and get ready for the week, okay? So here we go. the state's case on life support, chat. So we are on break. We're on break for a little bit. Here we go.
Dr.
You can continue. So the Commonwealth's objection is overruled. You can continue.
Oh no! The objection's overruled. So Chloe's bite history is coming in. What? No way!
Doctor, you've listed several items that you've reviewed in coming to your opinions and conclusions. Did you also review a toxicological report
Yes,
and a neurology report, neuropathology report?
yes,
As well from the Commonwealth.
yes.
I guess they're not going to stay on that.
Based on your review of all of those materials, I don't want to know what your opinion or conclusion is yet, but were you able to come to an opinion or conclusion concerning the injuries specifically to John O'Keefe's arm,
Yes,
or his right arm? Were there any documents in furtherance of your review from UC Davis?
yes.
Did you review those as well?
Objection.
Sustained.
With
Well, that
Bush
must
permission,
be-
may we display
She's not-
exhibit 19?
Oh, she's not allowed to
Okay.
talk about him, I guess.
Doctor, I want to show you a photograph and ask you very quickly, have you seen this before?
Yes,
Is this one of a number of photographs that you reviewed in furtherance of your evaluation of this case?
yes, it is.
I'd like to just focus your attention on this for just a quick second and ask you, does this accurately reflect the wounds or injuries that you saw on John O'Keefe's right arm in coming to your opinions and conclusions?
Yes, it reflects the injuries that I saw in photographs.
All right. Now, based on your review
Look at the
of all of the data that
photograph.
you've talked about, all of the information that you were given and reviewed, what is your opinion or conclusion about how these injuries were sustained?
I believe that these injuries were sustained by an animal, possibly a large dog, because of the pattern of the injuries.
Could you describe for the jurors, please, on what you base that opinion?
Yes. Well, may I use the,
Sure.
okay, thank you. There's a number of patterns here. There up on the upper part of the arm, there's parallel lines, and those were inflicted by either teeth or claw marks. So there's a number of patterns that could be teeth or claw mark. And so this is one set right here. This is the one further down, closer to the elbow, is another set of parallel marks. Again, probably most likely from teeth marks. And the reason I say that is, in addition to the parallel marks up here, down here, there's also little punctate, incomplete puncture marks here. Little round marks right there that were inflicted by the actual point of the tooth.
Okay, that was my question. What relevance does that have to your determination that this was likely caused by an animal?
Yes, and I can explain in a moment the various kinds of wounds that animals can inflict. But going on with the picture first. So then down right at the elbow, there's another different series of marks that again have linear abrasions up where the pointer is, and then down below some punctate, superficial, round, small abrasions, again representing upper and lower teeth, in my opinion. And then there are some irregular wounds down just below the elbow. And these are all, by the way, on the exterior surface, or what we call what doctors would call the posterior surface of the arm, which is the part of the arm that would sustain defensive type wounds. So if someone were to protect themselves.
Objection.
So sustained. Next question.
Sure. Doctor,
Too late.
another question.
Ah!
Just to clear up what you
Lally's
said a
gonna
little earlier about
mold.
some of the wounds close to the elbow, is it your opinion that both the top teeth and bottom teeth could have created some or all of the injuries on that elbow area?
Yes,
Okay, so in other words, instead of the mouth going all the way around the arm, it could have, the top and bottom jaw could have situated itself on this portion that we're seeing, the posterior part of the arm?
yes. And in this case, the animal did not get a good enough contact.
Objection. Move to strike.
So I'm going to strike that, ask a different question.
Have you seen contact wounds where the animal, a dog for instance, gets a very solid purchase on the leg, arm, part of the body?
Yes,
Okay, is that this or is this something else?
something else.
Describe that.
Well, an animal inflicts injuries. The type of injury depends in part on the actual type of contact and how much force is applied by that animal. in addition to any relative movement between the animal and the victim in this case. So, for instance, in the law enforcement dog bites, many of
Objection.
So the nature, is it notice? Is it, what's one word?
May we approach?
Okay.
Oh no, he's getting mad. There's nothing wrong with her testimony. She's a dog trained by cops. Like, I guarantee you, Chloe was trained like a fucking police dog. She probably had bite commands and release commands. So I think it would be applicable to use this against them. Like, I don't understand why they're being fucking dicks about it, but Lally's gonna cry. More baby cry from Lally. Lally's gonna baby cry, chat. He's gonna baby cry. This is a very good witness. This is a godsend that they found. It's a godsend this woman contacted them. Karen Reed better be thanking God at this point. Honestly. So, let's just see how long this takes. I'm sure Lally... I understand how she's going to be able to sustain Lally's objections at this point. Because they're not, like... She's explaining shit. I don't know what more Lally wants her to do. I mean, they're doing a great job of explaining what the fuck is going on here. Jackson is doing a great job with this person. With this doctor. I mean, they're doing a phenomenal job.
You are unmuted.
May I, Your Honor? Yes. Thank you. Without getting into any specifics about police canines,
Okay.
does the pattern of injuries that you see appear consistent
Oh, they sustain that?
with an animal or a large dog?
yes,
I think that's kind of
Does the
shitty.
number of injuries that you see here relegated to just the right arm, is that also consistent with an animal or large dog?
yes, it can be.
Is the direction of the injuries, or the consistency of the direction of the injuries with parallel injuries, is that also consistent with an animal or large dog attack?
Yes,
Based on everything that we've discussed today, doctor, is it your opinion, based on a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that these injuries were from an animal attack, possibly a large dog?
yes.
Have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
That's all I have at this time. Your Honor.
Okay.
May we approach?
Okay.
What, Lally, what are you crying about now, buddy? What's he going to cry about? Oh, she's being too mean, Judge. Wah! I'm Lally. Wah! Wah! Here we go.
Sure.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir.
Now, testified that you're certified in emergency medicine, is that correct?
That is correct.
And you're not, nor were you ever certified in forensic medicine, is that correct?
That is correct.
Pathology.
Correct.
And when was the last time that you worked at a coroner's office?
1995 in terms of doing autopsies. Yes.
Now, when was it that you first spoke to anyone from defense counsel in regard to your coming in here and testifying today?
May 17th.
Doctor, I am going to ask you to keep your voice up.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
May 17th, 2024.
May 17th of this year, is that right?
2024.
So about 6 weeks after this trial began.
I don't know when the trial began.
Now, as far as who reached out to who?
I reached out to a district attorney that I worked with with the LA coroner's office.
And then somehow that person put you in touch with Mr. Jackson, is that right?
Yes,
And was that also on May 17th?
Because Jackson used to be
17th
a
and
DA
18th,
out in
yes.
LA.
So I'm sorry, 17th or the 18th? Which one was it that you spoke with Mr. Jackson?
I didn't speak to him.
You did not speak to him?
Not speaking, not verbal. There was some email communication or text communication.
You communicated with him. Was
Yes.
it on the 17th or the 18th?
Yes, both, I think.
Both. Okay. And when did you render this opinion as far as what you testified to here today?
Shortly after he sent me the files.
Now, in regard to those files, you testified in this court a couple days ago, correct?
I did.
And you were under oath at that point, is that correct?
Excuse me?
You were under oath at that point, is that correct?
Yes,
And when you were asked specifically what materials that you had reviewed, you included a number of items, but you did not include anything about a Dr. Sheridan affidavit, anything about a UC Davis report, or anything about any sort of bite history for a canine that lived or resided at 34 Fairview Road, correct?
that's correct because I hadn't reviewed them then.
And so since then, 2 days ago, now you've reviewed them, correct?
Yes, I became aware that those files existed. Yes.
You became aware of those files? Were they not sent to you previously?
No, I think there were technical difficulties regarding me and the computer and downloading from Dropbox. And so, yeah, so they were, I think they were sent to me, but I think I didn't open them.
Now, with reference to these technical difficulties, did you ever express any of those technical difficulties, or, hey, I can't see the whole file, or there's other things in here that are listed that I can't look at?
No, I wasn't aware.
And so with regard to, as far as your reaching out or contacts in regard to this case, how did that come about?
Okay. I saw an article, I believe it was in the Boston Globe, regarding this case.
None of that's a booyah. None of that, like, I get what he's trying to say. Like, you just saw stuff, but it's like, okay, she saw them, and now what?
And I didn't, initially I didn't think anything of it. Then I saw an article that indicated that there was some.
I'm not asking you anything about anything any article indicated. You saw an article in the Boston Globe about this case, is that right?
Yes.
And how did you come upon it? You have a subscription to the Boston Globe?
I did at the time, yes.
Did at the time. What time was this?
In May.
May of 2024?
Yes.
And how long had you had a subscription to the Boston Globe at the time that you saw this?
It was either a 6-month subscription or a year. I don't remember.
And that was the first time that you had seen anything about that?
First time I paid attention to anything like that, yes.
Now, again, you had testified here just a couple of days ago when I asked you questions about this. Is that right?
Yes.
It wasn't in your testimony just a couple of days ago that the subscription was actually for a year or 18 months.
No.
Remember, not 6 months a year.
So only one person can talk at a time. So was that your testimony, doctor?
No, I don't believe so. I believe that that I said it was a 6-month subscription or a 12-month subscription.
In any event, you saw something. That's the first time that you recall seeing anything in the media about this case?
She's a prick, guys. She's a state employee.
It was the first time that I recall reading anything about it. Correct.
Now, did you write a report in regard to your opinions that you've testified here today?
No.
And I asked you that a couple days ago as well?
Yes.
Okay, so in the last couple of days, you've had time to review a UC Davis report, Dr. Sheridan's affidavit, and any sort of dog bite history, but you haven't had a chance to write a report?
Objection.
Sustained to that point.
You haven't written a report, correct?
That's correct.
Why not?
I haven't been asked to write a report, sir.
Did you ever look at anything related to Mr. O'Keefe's head injury?
No.
I looked at
Objection.
Sustained.
Yeah, she's here for dog bites, you dumb fuck. You really want to go down that road? You are asking questions. Holy shit. Oh my, why would you do that, Lally? Let's say that comes in. Yeah, and I've seen it, and there's no way in fuck you could have got hit by a car and it sustained damage to the head only. You'd have to be fucking insane to claim that. You don't ask that question. You don't know the answer to her opinion. Because if you start asking her about it, she's now got trauma experience. You're fucked. Why would you ask that? He fought tooth and nail to make sure she focused on the dogs only anyway. If I'm Jackson and them, I'm thinking about bringing it up and saying he opened the door. Yeah, he opened the door here. Oh, you guys were telling me shit goes down. I guess I found it.
Yes.
Door. Zach, there we go, guys. I didn't even have to. Oh. Why that objection? Because now they're saying we have the right to approach. And now they're going to go. I guess I was right. I guess I was right. Ah. If I mention what I'm taking with, working on something for 2.0. Working on something for 2.0. But look at her. She's fucking unfazed. But yeah, holy shit. This is why you don't do that, Lally. This is like, You guys are literally watching a man fuck himself in front of the country. I'm just watching this for my reactions. Like, I think they have the right to go into it now. Lally, you done fucked up, homie. Here we go. I'd be demanding it if I were them. Why'd you even bring it up? You didn't have to bring it up. There was no point in bringing it up. You could have brought that up in closing. She wasn't allowed to talk about it. You know, she didn't bother talking about it, ladies and gentlemen. You know, an ER doc that can't tell you that? I mean, if I was them, I'd tell Karen fucking shut up, look straight ahead. we may have something here. I would like no reaction. But that is a big fuck up by Lally. That is massive. Lally, you might have just played yourself, and I don't know for sure, but kind of feels like it. Kind of feels like it, at least to me. If I was John O'Keefe's family, I'd be feeling a very cold be a very cold feeling right now going through my bones. Just saying. Just saying. It would make me very concerned. Just kill yourself. Once you kill yourself. Okay, let's see here.
Now, Doctor, you testified that you had some familiarity with areas of forensic science. You're on some boards, things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as a result of that, or any other work experience, are you familiar with a NAS report from 2008?
Not with that limited information, no.
You're not aware of a report issued by the National Association of Forensic Science in 2008?
Which one?
Specifically has a section dealing with.
So I'm going to see you both at sidebar again.
Yeah, if he's got this report, let her see it. Do you know that's an issue? Like that's how Lally should be doing this. Like, are you aware of a report? I'm sure the American Association of Medical Examiners did a million fucking reports. Like, how the fuck is she's supposed to know? Like, you can't do this to either side. That's wholly unfair. That's really fucking unfair to do what he's doing. To either side, like, you know, the defense would never fucking be allowed to do this. So.
You are unmuted.
So, ma'am, you're not familiar with that report, specifically as it applies to forensic odontology?
So could you say that again, Mr. Lally? What's the report?
The National Academy of Sciences 2008 report in relation to the section referring to forensic odontology.
I'm not familiar with that specific report, no.
So then you equally unfamiliar with the representation that is not from the NAS report, that is not a reliable science as far as bite marks.
There are certain aspects of bite marks that have been deemed not reliable. And that I believe has to do with saying that this particular person or animal inflicted this particular bite. But that's very specific, and that's what I'm aware of, that recommendation.
You're not aware of any findings in the NAS report that has led to questioning the value and scientific objectivity of such evidence?
That's true. You can't say the bite mark identification is bullshit science, but saying that's a dog is not. Lally's trying to lie here. He's going to get fucked.
For specifically identifying a bite mark to an individual that might have inflicted the bite mark, I think that's what that applies to.
Okay, I'm not asking, again, this is a report. Are you familiar with it or are you not familiar?
I'm familiar with a summary or a abstract of a report that indicates that forensic odontology is not is deemed not reliable when it comes to that particular narrow aspect of forensic odontology.
And so you're not familiar with it. Also talking about sample data and collection, analyses of these, interpretation and reporting of results. You're not familiar with those areas of the NAS report as well?
What specifically, do you have a specific question about that, or?
My first question was whether or not you're familiar with the report. You indicated that you weren't.
I did not read the report.
Mr. Lally, let the witness answer one question at a time, one speaker at a time. Doctor, can you answer that question?
Fucking report.
I did not read that report.
Now, you had written some articles that you were asked about in reference to dog bites, canine dog bites in the emergency department. Is that correct?
Yes, co-authored.
Something that you published or authored or co-authored sometime in the late 1990s. Is that right?
Correct.
And in that instance, you talk about law enforcement dogs and a bite and a hold technique, correct?
Yes.
Now, part of the reason in writing that article had to do with sort of the applied forces and the unique spectrum of injuries from those kind of dog bites. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that spectrum of injuries would include deep puncture wounds. Is that right?
They can. Yes.
Severe crush injuries. Is that right?
Correct.
Large tissue avulsions and lacerations. Is that right?
Yes.
Wounds necessitating surgical debridement. Is that right?
Yes.
Bony injuries ranging from cortical violations to displaced fractures. Is that right?
Yes.
Neurovascular damage. Is that right?
Yes.
And other wounds at high risk for infection. Correct?
Correct. But we also put a disclaimer in that article.
I'm not asking you about any disclaimer.
Okay.
I'm asking you about that's what the type of injuries that you were looking at. Is that correct?
Uh-oh.
Yes, but we saw a skewed population.
You skewed population in the study. Is that correct?
What we saw the worst of the worst.
Or no? Did
Yes.
you skew the population in the study?
I'm sorry, I don't
Did
understand
you
the question.
skew the population
We
in the
skew
study?
did we skew? No, we reported on all the ones that presented to the emergency room for care. However, a lot of dog bites don't present to the emergency room.
And so from the different cases that you report on within that article, are there any of those cases in which there is injuries to just one aspect of one part of the human body for the victims of dog attacks or dog bites in those cases?
There may have been. That's a summary of the 700 cases, more than 700 cases.
Is it normal in any kind of animal attack for injuries to occur on just one side of one arm of the person that's being attacked, clawed, or bitten?
There are many people who are bitten or scratched.
I'm asking
Only-
if it's normal, ma'am. That's all I'm
Okay,
asking.
so hold on, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Lally, ask a question, wait for the answer, and then start a next question. Do not interrupt the witness.
I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm asking for an answer responsive to the question.
So ask a question
Oh,
and
God,
ask it in a
he's
manner that
losing
you get a
control,
response.
Lally.
Dr. Russell, is it your testimony that it's
getting
normal
hurt.
in an animal attack for injuries to occur on just one side of one arm and nothing else, anywhere else on that person's body?
It can be, yes.
I'm not asking if it can be. I'm asking, is that normal?
I can't say.
Sustained, you have to ask the question differently.
So from your observations, you look at various photographs of Mr. O'Keefe, is that right?
I did.
Did you observe any injuries on any other part of his body that you would attribute to an animal attack, whether it be claw marks or bite marks or anything else?
No,
So nothing on his left arm, correct?
nothing that identified as a dog bite or
Nothing on
scratch.
his legs, is that correct?
That's correct.
Nothing on his torso, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you say an animal attack, possibly a large dog, correct?
Yes.
Can you say what type of animal left these marks that you attribute to an animal attack?
Not with 100% certainty, no.
Can you say where physically Mr. O'Keefe was located when the animal attack supposedly occurred?
Objection.
Can you say that?
No.
Okay.
Can you say when Mr. O'Keefe purportedly sustained these injuries from an animal attack?
Well, to a certain degree, yes. It was before death, but not long enough to have a big inflammatory reaction. So yes. So minutes to hours before death.
Minutes to hours before death, but at some point before death, correct?
Yes.
Can you say anything about the breed of dog?
No.
Can you say anything about whether it occurred inside the house, outside the house, anything like that?
No.
As far as you mentioned some of the different things that you reviewed over the course of your testimony, over the preparation of your testimony, both prior to Tuesday and between Tuesday and today, any of those things contain any forensic reports or phone examinations or anything else related to this case?
Could you repeat that? I didn't. What kind of examination?
Any
Phone?
materials that you reviewed, whether it be prior, sometime between May 17th and Tuesday, or anything that you reviewed between Tuesday and today, did any of those materials that you reviewed contain any sort of forensic reports or anything beyond the UC days?
Yes, I saw a photograph.
You saw photographs. And to that point, you never actually saw Mr. O'Keefe's body, correct? You just saw photographs?
That's true.
And with respect to the UC Davis report, as far as canine DNA, are you aware that the results of that were that there was no canine DNA on Mr. O'Keefe, on swabbings that were sent to the UC Davis lab?
There's
I'm going to
objection.
allow it.
Yes, but there was clothing in between.
Okay, but the swabbings came from the clothing with tears in the
Okay.
clothing in the same area as the injuries, correct?
Okay.
Do you know that or no?
I couldn't tell if they came from the wound or the clothing. I thought that they came from the clothing, but
You couldn't tell by reviewing the report whether or not swabbings came from clothing or from Mr. O'Keefe's body.
I know the clothing was sent to the laboratory,
You know the clothing was sent to what laboratory?
to the DNA laboratory.
To UC Davis?
Oh, I don't know that. No, I'm sorry.
You are aware that that came back as far as negative for any canine DNA, correct?
That's correct.
Now, as far as the injuries that you observed, your testimony is that both the top teeth of whatever animal this is and the bottom teeth of whatever animal this is both made contact with only the top of Mr. O'Keefe's arm or the posterior of his arm?
Both sets of teeth made contact with certain of those wounds, yes, but not all of them.
But neither the top nor the bottom teeth made any contact that you observed, assuming your issue as far as an animal attack. There's no evidence of any animal attack on the bottom of Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, correct?
I'm not sure what you mean by bottom.
Anterior,
Interior? That's correct.
and nothing on the posterior or the anterior of his left arm,
That is correct.
and nothing on his legs,
That's correct.
nothing on his torso,
Correct.
nothing on his head. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as the marks that you did observe that you do attribute to an animal attack, can you even say with certainty whether or not those marks you feel are bite marks versus scratch marks? Do you have any idea which are which?
There may be a combination.
So is that no?
Well, no, I think that the ones that had the linear abrasions above the small round punctate abrasions, I believe that those are bite marks from upper and lower teeth.
Nice.
Now, you indicated that part of what you had reviewed was a dog bite history for a dog from 34 Fairview Road named Chloe. Is that right?
Yes.
And there were a couple different instances of that dog essentially getting in a fight with other dogs, correct?
Yes.
And at any point in time, did you see anything in there as far as a dog going after a human in which there was no other dog present?
No.
And there were actually photographs contained within that material of dog bites from that dog, from Chloe, correct?
Yes.
Did any of those dog bites that you saw in those photographs look anything like what you observed in the photos that you saw of Mr. O'Keefe's arm?
No, but. Okay.
That's all, man.
Objection, Your Honor.
No, so the answer is no. You can get back up, Mr. Jackson, but the answer to that question is no. Next question.
So is it your testimony that from reviewing what you reviewed, that what you observe on Mr. O'Keefe's arm is consistent with an animal attack to the exclusion of any other possibilities?
To a degree of reasonable medical certainty, yes.
So as far as any other sort of blunt impact injuries or other manifestations of how those scratches got there, you're saying, nope, had to be an animal attack.
I've seen thousands of wounded.
Come on. What I'm asking is.
All right. So, Mr. Lally, I'm going to let the witness answer.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I've seen thousands of people with injuries to their skin, and from blunt, from sharp, from all different mechanisms. Those injuries did not look like blunt force injuries.
So it's your testimony that the injuries to his arm don't look anything like blunt force injuries that you've seen before. You wouldn't characterize them as that?
That's correct.
And that's based on some photographs and some other materials that you began reviewing sometime May 17th, 2024.
Yes, I'm an ER doctor. I need to make a diagnosis quickly when I see something, and I'm trained to do that. That's my specialty.
Are you being asked as an ER doctor to come to a quick conclusion in this case?
No,
But you did anyway.
it's how I'm trained.
Nothing further.
Very briefly, Your Honor. Does the board-
Go ahead.
Concerning the forensic odontology report, the NAS report that Mr. Lally asked you about, what is your understanding about the report as it pertains to identifying individuals who left a bite mark? Explain that to jurors, please.
I believe the report says that that is not reliable as it once was thought to be.
Like a fingerprint identifying a human being, DNA identifying a person, or a bite mark identifying a person. NAS said, not the bite mark, doesn't work that way.
That's correct.
Has nothing to do with the pattern of injuries that you've seen 1,000 times from animals, correct?
Correct.
You were asked several questions about the injuries that you saw and studied attended to highly trained canines, police dogs, correct?
Yes.
Very different than just a domestic dog that somebody might have as a pet, correct?
Correct.
And the bite injuries are very, very different as well, aren't they?
That is correct.
You were asked whether or not you were aware based on UC Davis's report, that there was no canine DNA found on the swabs that were sent to them, correct?
Yes,
Are you also aware that there was pig DNA?
I'm aware of that.
Did that have any impact did you analyze that at all, one way or the other?
Not to any degree of scientific certainty, no.
But you do know that dogs chew on pig ears sometimes, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You've reviewed at least a report, if not a series of reports, that indicate that a particular dog has an attack history, correct?
Yes,
You were asked specifically by Mr. Lally whether or not the wounds in a dog attack on another dog attack where a human stuck a hand in the middle look anything like these, correct? Remember that question?
I remember a question like
And
that.
you said no, but, and then you were cut off. Remember that?
Yes,
Can you finish that answer for us?
yes. So animals and dogs in particular can inflict a wide variety of injuries on the skin, from just individual puncture wounds to abrasions where there's a scratching of the skin, to where there's actually a pulling away pulling away of the skin from the underlying tissues, your ripping effect. And so there's a variety of wounds that or patterns that one can see from an animal attack. It depends a lot on the thickness of the skin, the movement of between the victim and the animal, and also the power of the animal and the training of the animal. Yes.
So in other words, not all wounds inflicted by a particular animal are going to look exactly the same.
Correct.
Very dynamic situation, isn't it?
Objection.
Sustained.
Doctor, having seen up to 1,000 bite and claw marks on the human body, and based on your review of the entirety of the case file that you reviewed, including the nature and the pattern and consistency of the injuries that you saw on Mr. O'Keefe's right arm, what is your opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty about the nature of those injuries?
Objection.
Sustained.
What is your ultimate conclusion and opinion about the injuries that you saw and that you reviewed and that you saw today?
Objection.
Sustained.
Can you tell the jurors at the end of the day, what is your opinion and conclusion about those injuries?
Objection.
Sustained.
Can we approach?
Let's see what they're bitching about. This is really good redirect by Jackson. Doing a very good job.
Thank you, Doctor. No more questions.
You are
And-
unmuted.
Mr. Lally,
Oh.
you had no more questions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, Doctor, you
Oh
are.
god damn.
Thank you.
That was an ass whooping, chat.
All right, jurors, we will take our luncheon break.
Court, all rise to the jury.
All right, chat. We are gonna take. So we are at. We have like an hour and a half to go, and I'm assuming there's a break in here. Let me just double check. Is there a break? Yeah, there's. So you know what, guys? We are gonna stop for now. We're caught up, and tomorrow we will finish. Tomorrow we will finish. That was absolutely brutal. There is no break. Yeah, Hella's having a party, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Hella is having her birthday party, guys. If you could go stop by and tell her happy birthday, I know she would appreciate that. Birthdays are important. At the end of the day, birthday parties are important. They're very critical. It's about celebrating the time, the short time we have on Earth, and celebrating it with people we care about. So stop by, tell her hello. I know she would be happy to see you guys there. So the next dude's a Midwest guy. Yes. Spanish GP is at 5 a.m. You searched Helen, got nothing. Guys, it's going over excited utterance. That's her name. So, yeah, and guys, here's the thing. If this is the best Lally could do against these witnesses, they're fucked. Lally's fucked. Karen Reed's going to walk. And guys, yeah, that's where we are with this at this point. That's kind of where I'm at. And Juror 13 says member for 4 months. He's like, what? 4 months? Been lurking since Rittenhouse. It covers the memberships. And if your membership, you have a membership that elapses, that means 4 months of continuous membership. So if you have one that elapses, then you get one another month later, and then it lapses, and you go month to month to month to month to month, and there's gaps. You don't get to keep it. Doesn't keep your streak alive. So something to think about there. And Stop Moss B says, are these props billed in the lawyer fees? I mean, like, it's all part of that money Karen Reed's putting out there. But yeah, for the state, no, that's just what they do. I mean, their budget's infinite anyway. So Jim Cox says, whatevs. Defense has 4 more witnesses. David says Spanish Grand Prix starts at 9 a.m. Eastern. Yes, it does. The only time zone that matters. Yes. And hopefully it's a dry race. So Trenton says, I love the backstory. It's the first lawyer she called. Me too. Me too. Who's Hella? You know, his excited utterance, guys. No mandates saying, do you think, remember 6 months? Thank you. Do you think John O'Keefe's family will file if Karen Reed walks? Sure, but they're going to fucking lose. I mean, if she gets acquitted, they're fucked. I mean, this is awful for them. This is awful for them. Guys, the link for Hella is you're going to get redirected, so don't worry about that. Garrett says, check out my streak. Well, thank you for being here, Garrett. I appreciate that. Shri says, I never answer your questions. What was your question, Shri? I didn't see it. Put it back down there. I'll wait for you. What's your question? Hella is excited utterance, guys. You may recognize her as the Australian lady who's got the cat. So, but yeah, Karen would win a civil case pretty damn easy. Neil O'Keefe just need to fucking suck it up and go after the Alberts. Is it possible Lally maybe bumping Binger from being an adjective verb in the LawTube dictionary? Yes. Yep. A job well done says, use a Superberry. Where did you do one? A job well done. You didn't send in one. You didn't send one in, man. If you sent in it, it's not even marked. I don't see it. Huh. If you sent it in, I missed it. I'm sorry. You can repost the question. Shri, I'm serious. If I missed your question, put it down. I'll answer it. What's your question? Seller says, what are your discovery obligations if your expert doesn't write a report? At this very least, she has to disclose what her opinion's going to be in written form. So she had to disclose her opinion. Do I have a setting on the YouTube app that doesn't allow me to gift memberships, or is YouTube just being retarded? I think YouTube's being retarded. This is the thing. Other people can gift memberships. The app doesn't let some people, but Shri, there's also people who, like, if it's you and one other person in here and you gift a membership, they won't get it. For some reason, YouTube doesn't let some accounts get memberships. On top of that, there's so many weird things about YouTube when it comes to the membership issue. So, like it does it. It's weird as hell. I'm not going to deny it doesn't make any sense how YouTube governs how to handle memberships. Really, it doesn't make any. Yeah, I don't have an answer for you there. I do not have an answer. I wish I did. Oh, and while we're at it, I'm going to do that. Get out some memberships here. You know what? We're going to gift out. You have to hawk to on the app to make it work. We're going to gift out 5 more. Oh, somebody's saying if your account's too old, you need to change the account settings. Google it. Okay. Okay. Whoa, 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 Garrett. No, that's me. Future Mrs. Martin 2.0 could donate stuff, but that I get 10 memberships a month to give out. So that's why. You can't buy memberships on the app, only PC. Okay. But yeah. Yeah, potentially criminal with 10 memberships. Thank you, Sean. Oh, stop it. No, you're welcome. No, really, I appreciate you. Like, no, you don't have to. So, no, there we go. So, yeah, that's not 2.0, guys. That's me. Getting rid of the... Kibbo Nice is great for life. Zero wears a Greek, Baldo. Thank you, Whiskey77. All right, guys. We're going to head over to Hella. She's already been started, so let's go over there. And Virginia, you're welcome. Yes. Can we do it? Can we hit the subs goal, chat? No, not right now. But guys, after we're on with Hella for a bit, probably about 8:30, we'll hang out and do modeling for a little bit. Actually, I think we might do an audible and check out the 837 that J-Rock got and sent in. We'll take a look at that and start working on it a little bit. So let's head over to Hella, guys. And remember, until next time, Karen Reed is not guilty. Absolutely not fucking guilty. So, yeah. Shri, I'm not sure what setting you need to change, but depending on how old your YouTube account is, you might need a Google address attached to it. So, oh, hi, J-Rock. But all right, guys, we'll see you over there. Hope it's not Lego. No, it's a model. So, I will see you guys in a couple of seconds. I'll see you over there. Bye, everybody.